Insights for one of the most compelling year-ahead forecasts. Yes, we are talking today about the 2025 year-ahead forecasts for all signs, intuitive messages, overarching astrology transits, and a chapter for each sign of the zodiac, which you can find below with timestamps. Hi everyone and welcome back. This is Sky coming on to make one of my favorite videos of the year, which is the year ahead forecast. I am so excited to be coming on and talking about 2025 as one of the evergreen contents for this channel over the entire year of 2025. Be sure to hit the like button below as well as share this video, perhaps bookmark it, as you might want to return to this video during the year of 2025 to check back, as we have one of the most, for some people, perplexing year aheads, but also one of the most opportune year aheads to really get into some of the complexities of life and really straighten out some of the more complex or crooked paths that we've been on. I'm so optimistic about this year ahead, and I'm so looking forward to getting into this video. I have an outline that I've created. You might hear me thumbing through my notes here as I've made notes for each zodiac sign, and I want to split this video up into a few sections, which you should be able to see in the timeline of the video. I'm going to talk about the overtones of 2025, basically do some intuitive channeling for all signs, okay? It will relate to all people and all sort of collective themes that I have been able to understand coming into this year ahead. Then I'm going to talk about transits, okay? And again, that will apply to all signs. And then I'm going to get into a sign-by-sign portion where I'll talk about each sign individually. And you can feel free to interact with this video in any way that you like. Though I do request, if you have the chance, please subscribe to this YouTube channel, as this is a long video, probably 2+ hours long. And this is a free content as well. So if you would like to support this channel, please hit the subscribe button below, turn on the bell notifications, hit the thumbs up button, hit the share button, and yes, you can check the description box below. This channel is on Patreon as well as other social media. Feel free to look through that as a way of potentially supporting this channel. And without further ado, I want to get right into it this time, you all. Okay, so I invite you guys to check out my 2024 Global Dynamics video for the last chapter if you want to get some insight on leaving 2024, if you want to see what we are coming out of. Because I really want to button up 2024 and in this video really step into 2025. So we're going to start looking into some insights and messages that are really fresh and new. So if you're looking for some closure on 2024, definitely check out that video. And I'm going to step straight into 2025 general insights and intuitive messages. So the first thing that I'm getting about 2025, you all, is light like a feather. Okay, so things are lightening up a lot in 2025, okay? We are growing toward new frontiers. We are coming into the year with a grand air trine energy, okay? So we have Jupiter in Gemini. We have Pluto now firmly into Aquarius. It's not retrograding back into Capricorn. We're also entering this calendar year cycle with the South Node in Libra, and it's only staying for like the first week of the calendar year, as the nodal axis will be shifting back to Virgo and Pisces, which I will be making a video about. Hit the subscribe button below to be notified when that goes up. But the first day of the calendar year of 2025, we have all air signs represented in the zodiac. This means that things are moving more quickly. This means that we can't afford to be hung up on the previous things that were weighing down our psyche, you know, the things that we go over and over and over again, the changes that we're just so hesitant to make, the stagnation that we keep securely locked in. Okay, we can't really think this way about things anymore in 2025. I mean, can't you kind of feel it? 2025, it's like the feeling of the way it sounds, okay, as you say 2025, 2025, it feels like things are done, okay? It feels like, you know, I've got to live my life. It feels like, you know, I've wasted time, or I've lost time on something and I've spent too much time on something, and that can't be the way that things go anymore. So the first thing that I'm feeling for the 2025 year ahead is a quickening, and I'm feeling also that there are conclusions to stagnation, and 2025 is a liminal year. You know, we had this a little bit in 2024, but it's really amping up to the next degree because there are some things in 2025 at an astrological transit level that are totally new. Okay, so we have Pluto in Aquarius, right? Also, we're going to have, you know, Saturn going into Aries, Neptune going into Aries. We're going to have Uranus going into Gemini. Okay, these are all totally new things. Now, the thing is, though, is that those transits will retrograde back. And nonetheless, we will have Pluto not retrograding back. So the outer planets are kind of like going into totally new signs in this year. And only one of them, though, are staying. So it's still liminal, as, you know, Uranus, Neptune, and Saturn will all retrograde back into their anaretic degrees by later in the year. So we're going to get a lot of fresh, like, comprehensive understanding of, like, okay, this is the way that things are changing. This is the way that my life is going to change. But then we might have to go back and do a little bit of reversion work, or we might have to kind of like recenter ourselves about our momentum leading up to these changes. There is a feeling in this time of sort of taking off the weight of your shoulders. So taking the weight off your shoulders, not having certain burdens because we know that it's liminal, or we know that we're between two places. And it's like the Six of Swords in the tarot, right? That's one of my, I think that's one of the best archetypes to work with when we're in like a collective liminal phase, is like understanding, okay, I've got to get from point A to point B. There's a feeling of, you know, not being able to be too weighed down, not being able to be too dense about things, or to have too high of expectation, too high of ego, too high of like a forceful nature, because, you know, there's kind of a perilous feeling about crossing from one side to another. You know, with the Six of Swords, it's like the boat, and sometimes there are like holes in the boat, and we've just got to get across, and we can't, you know, take everything with us sometimes, or we can't always really have our attention on too many things. It's kind of like getting to the other side. So that's something that I'm feeling about 2025 as well. Is, you know, some people could be suffering from too much of like an empire mentality, or there could be some kind of like over focus, right? Like Nine of Wands, okay, having too much on the plate will be very hard for 2025 because it's weighing things down, or it's making it hard to like really get done what needs to get done. So there has to be a lot of strategy considered in the 2025 year ahead. Because we have to keep certain things with us, right? Like we need the boat, we need the necessities of getting across, but there are some things that we can't take with us. So I'm seeing quite a large need for adaptability, okay, coming in 2025. Flexibility, adaptability, light like a feather. Again, I am seeing miles, or I'm seeing like a distance being covered. I'm seeing flights. Okay, we're coming out of the dragon year, which does last into the first month or so of the calendar year, which then we're going from dragon to snake, which again, subscribe below as I'll make a full video about that. But there's definitely a feeling of covering distance, okay? And that was one of the final messages for the dragon year, was like, okay, so we're getting across some type of reservoir, we're getting across some type of channel. And in order to do that, I feel that we do have to lighten our load so that we can move more quickly. And 2025 is going to teach us a lot about how to do that, and how to kind of like filter through or process or make those decisions appropriately. Also, one of the negatives about 2025 could be, you know, not having done that right, like essentially a capsizing or certain sinking because there's too much taken on. So that could look like burnout. That could look like also, you know, certain investments or economic vehicles not doing as well as people thought. Like definitely there are going to be some downward trajectories when things are too dense or heavy, or when there's too much funding going to something unnecessary. 2025 will actually see downward trajectories. And I know that coming out of 2024, a lot of us are feeling like, okay, it's going to be a boom. And it is going to be for a lot of things, but they have to be light things, okay? So they're going to be like air economy things. For example, the tech industry will probably do very well, assuming that those companies are not too dense in their in their strategies. If they have quite a light and effervescent strategy, regardless of what industry it is, it's going to boom. But if it's dense and sort of burdened by a lot of unnecessary holdings, it will go down. So it's a volatile year. If we're talking economics, it's a volatile year also for people who are kind of like this, where there is a crossroads between like density and weighing down, or having more mobility and sort of like more of a lighter touch. Okay, so one of the things that I got about 2025 was don't stay in dense, weighed down, or heavy places, because they are refusing to adapt. Okay, so keeping this is a great way to process and make this positive, make this lightening, quickening energy positive, is sort of understanding what's refusing to adapt. What is like holding everything up in a kind of stasis, or in a kind of dense stasis specifically. Try to move away from these things in 2025 and pursue fresher, lighter, more natural momentums that are at the same time generating momentum. So it's almost like we want to adapt to a lighter hand, or we want to adapt our strategies, our businesses, our investments, our projects, okay, to have a lighter yet sustainable, yet nonetheless secure in its own way method of operation. So this is like also a challenge, because it's hard to combine all of these things together, but 2025 is kind of asking for the best of both worlds to be applied, meaning like we do have to take some things from the old world, Pluto and Capricorn, and apply it, but some things also have to be released. As if you remember, a lot in 2024, I was talking about that message where it's kind of like a rocket going into the next level of the atmosphere. It now doesn't need those same propellers anymore, so it has to release that, but it does still need certain things, obviously, to function. So it's about knowing what needs to be released and what can't be released, and also not getting too attached or emotional about that release process. Again, we are in the first full year of Pluto in Aquarius with no retrogrades back into Capricorn. Detachment from the previous. Okay, a lot is detaching, you all. And in fact, you can feel it. If you're a person who has a very strong attachment to things, this can either be through ego, or through like emotional trauma, or through a feeling of lack and needing to have a very conscious understanding of how lack is coped with, and starting to get very particular about, you know, how other people treat you, needing to be treated a specific way, needing certain respect grids, needing certain hierarchical validation. Okay, ego is quite strong coming into 2025, as we've just come out of a dragon year. So there is a feeling of like, I know what I deserve as a person, and I need to be treated a certain way. And if people have been successful, there may be quite a bit of that, but 2025 is not really going to do it. So careful about paper tiger ego, okay? Needing a certain validation, needing certain normalcies also to be upkept, meaning, okay, this is big. Yeah, this is huge for 2025. I'm getting like major chills, and I don't have this written down. This is just coming through. A need to see the normal status quo continuing as a negative thing, and as a certain ego-based pain grid. All right, this is going to be a big thing in 2025, because it's not going to feel normal. Okay, what we're accustomed to, what we've been going through for a long time, is not going to repeat in the same way. And good for you if in 2024 you already started adapting the long-running structures in your life to have like a new era, or to start moving toward some type of greater expression of itself. Good for you, but 2025 is going to make it happen. Okay, it can't really be prevented anymore. So certain status quos are not going to continue through 2025. And there's a strong test on detaching from the previous and understanding the cycle of life in a more seasonal capacity. So some things can't be done as robotically anymore, for humans, all right, at least. And, you know, we see that with like the AI industry coming through, and with different types of technology starting to take over certain repetitive cycles, certain jobs, okay? Because humans can't do it unseasonally anymore, meaning that 365 days a year we can't work that minimum wage job anymore. It's inhumane. It's not gonna work. It's gonna be hard for it to manifest, actually. but it still will, of course. But it's going to create a lot of distortion and a lot of quantum chaos for people to not embrace the seasonality of life. This did already start to come up over the previous few years, where people had to start thinking more seasonally, and had to start perhaps adapting their work cycles, to be more on a human grid. Ever since the Industrial Revolution, we had these like 365-day-a-year cycles that kind of worked outside of the seasons of the earth. And that's one of the reasons why there's been, on one hand, more prosperity for some people, but on the other hand, more dehumanization, because there is quite a sizable disconnect from Earth's seasons for most people, and therefore quite a disconnect from certain genetic cycles as well. So insomnia, endocrine problems, all of those things really coming to a climax, and having done so over the previous few years. But 2025 now, with Pluto in Aquarius, starting in the positive to offer solutions through AI, through alternative technologies to this. But on the other hand, also for people who are still not in a seasonal context in their own life, you could see an increase of autoimmune problems. You could see an increase of also people realizing that it's not going to work for them, strikes, protests, all of that kind of stuff, because of a refusal to acknowledge the seasonal nature of the human genome, and the seasonal nature of human energy and life force energy. So drained, tired, depleted workers, drained, tired, depleted, even business owners or people who are just in any way really invested in these things that just go, go, go on a perpetual loop forever. This started to come up at the end of 2024 too, where it was like, okay, these perpetual loops are not going to work. And then there was the adaptability video that I made, which if you wanted to them over on my channel, it should be one of the videos prior to this one. I made a video about adaptability and flexibility, and how we're really moving into a time where we've got to adapt more to our natural cycles, and we have to understand that some of these previously imposed, rigid, kind of industrialized, inhumane cycles are going to maybe dissipate and are going to need to. So the first full year of Pluto in Aquarius, I mean, gosh, it's going to be hard, because on one hand, there's power in these industrial ways, because Aquarius is kind of an industrial sign, but it's sort of not for people. It's for, I don't know, I'm not going to say it's for AI, but it's for something else. And there's actually going to be power in lessening the attachment to these things and embracing more of a seasonality. But because of this, and because of the way this paradigm shift is changing within the collective mind, I'm seeing a few hang-ups. Okay, that was a keyword. Hang-ups, trade-offs. 2 keywords coming up for 2025. So 2025, there is sort of a constellation of nodes, a constellation of components that individuals and also collectives are generating energy through. Okay, you could consider this sort of like a collection of institutions, or even a collection of just components of life force energy. So what this looks like is like, okay, you've got like the food system, you've got the economic system, you've got the monetary system, you've got collectives, and also labor grids. Okay, and all of these things sort of work in a constellation that generate outcomes and sort of charge up the current quantum field that we're going through. There are going to be things not working right in 2025, because there's innovation on one hand and antiquation on the other. And this means that certain components or nodes will just fail randomly and kind of almost like a shooting star just blast off out of relevance, which will ripple through the rest of the constellation, basically. So that does give a chaotic element to this year ahead. And it's also why ego is going to be really hard. And, Pluto in Capricorn is one of the high ego placement. Pluto in Aquarius is the opposite. So it's going to be hard for some people to adjust this year, especially if the ego is very strong. And this thing that I'm talking about, where you have this sort of matrix reinvigoration or change in the way that, these collective systems work, it'll kill a lot of egos. okay, because certain things that people are very invested in will fail, certain things that people have believed for a long time as belief systems, yes, religions, spiritual movements are also wrapped up in these grids. Some of those things will kind of get fractured or fragmented, and that's going to be very difficult for some people to comprehend and process. And this is going to sort of create glitches, hang-ups, and then also trade-offs. So it's kind of also for some people, they're going to realize that a certain node or a component in their life, okay, as a constellation, will have to be traded for a different one. So this could be like, if you have a business, like one of your suppliers could go bankrupt, and then now you have to find a different supplier. So you've got to like trade off this old one for a different one. And this is going to somewhat change the entire paradigm of your business. This is going to be happening for any entrepreneur or any person in business a lot over these next few years, actually. A lot of experimentation phases as we go through these first 5 or 8 degrees of Pluto and Aquarius. Over these next few years, lots of trade-offs, lots of things that used to work not working, having to reinvigorate. And I feel like we almost need to hold it more at arm's length, because when it's too personalized, it really does start to generate a certain ego, which can be damaging to the health, to the body, to the mind, to be so kind of like unstable or volatile. So one of the main things about 2025 year ahead general is detachment from the previous grids, because new ones are forming up. Now, the next thing that I have written down on my outline for 2025, I'm just thumbing through. Okay, continuing on with getting past certain anomalies. Okay, anomaly was a word that came up a lot in 2024, and it's still a theme going into 2025 because the Jupiter-Saturn squares continue. So in June of 2024, we had the first Jupiter-Saturn squares in the signs of Gemini and Pisces, and then it comes in again December 24th, 2024, and then the final one is in June of 2025. Now, I will also tell you guys that June and July of 2025 is huge. Saturn goes into Aries, Jupiter goes into Cancer, Uranus goes into Gemini in July. Okay, it's going to be huge, and it's going to finalize the Jupiter-Saturn squares, meaning that there needs to be some type of anomaly worked out by then, okay? And you probably even feel it, you know, this video is posting on December 20th, 2024. For most people, especially if that transit is in your chart at all, the Jupiter-Saturn squares, or if you have a lot of mutable placements, or if it forms any kind of T-square or perhaps cross in your chart, there's some kind of anomaly working. And the thing about anomalies is they're small things, okay? And I have a T-chat about this. I believe it's 238 on Patreon, and I posted a promotional video that gave most of that if you want to look back at my channel. I talked all about this dynamic in 2024 and 5 where, okay, anomalies, they're like little things, small little orbs, okay, essentially in the quantum field that seem small, but they can disrupt an entire system if they're not properly worked out. And I don't want to cause any like fear or worry or concern over this, but try to see this in your own life. Small things that are going to create a huge response. You know, the butterfly flaps its wings and then causes a hurricane across the world or whatever. It's kind of like an anomaly. It's also based on things being sort of half in and half out. This has generated a lot of anomalies in the quantum field. So like the Temperance card in reverse, where you have like 1 foot in and 1 foot out of things. Again, where some people are too much of an empire, or they have so many things going on that little things start to kind of mess the big things up, or at least impose some kind of condition that we don't need. So things for some people do need to be solved once and for all. 2025 is about resolving certain small things that have created big impacts and overcoming that. So having resolutions, okay? 2025, again, having a lighter touch so that things can be changed. Sometimes almost like the Magician card in the tarot, putting everything out in front of you, putting everything on the table, all the potential paths, all of the timelines maybe affecting this current experience, and ordering it in a way and creating a path forward. Also, a lot of the anomaly is coming from people paused at the crossroads, okay? And one of the things that I'm focusing on in 2025 is sort of like this healing at the crossroads energy, not being afraid to know which way to go, not just to go or to randomly kind of like cover your eyes and just steam forward, but to know when you come to the crossroads, this is the way that I need to go. That's going to do a lot of the resolution that we need to get some of these things worked out. Now, another thing for 2025 year ahead is energy reappropriation and softening. Some things that had a lot of fire in them in the past may need to soften. There's too much mental buzzing on the areas of lesser importance coming out of 2024. This should be a point of relief, I have written down. So reappropriation of energy. Understand clearly coming out of 2024 which areas have had too much energy put into them. Especially with like the fire element, okay? So where it's like we're burning through, or we're even in like working with some kind of like destructive or chaotic energy to like overcome something, you know, burning cortisol, blood pressure, you know, was hard in 2024 already because it was such an earth kind of year that it was, you know, a small match could lead to too much overburn. Things were very delicate, and that continues into 2025 to a degree because it's kind of like a feather. That's one of the images I get for 2025, a feather. Okay, so like the fire element is going to be not great to be using in that context either, and it can really get out of control. So that's 2 years in a row, 2024 and 2025, where the fire element, with just like the smallest misdirection, can blaze out of control and cause more harm than good. So if you're someone with a lot of fire in your chart, we have to learn more about air here, okay? We have to learn more about breath, and we have to learn more about the delicate nature of these fields that we're in, and that we have to apply, you know, fire in a more judicious way. Also, I feel that things which have been like we've really been carving something out, we've been fighting, we've been in the trenches, we've been pushing for a certain result. That energy may need to be put somewhere else too. Again, reappropriation of energy. Where that push was happening before may have to be softened, and that push may have to be totally withdrawn or applied somewhere else. So if you put too much energy in one bucket, you know, the same problems might start emerging in a different place. Like, we have to understand how to apply our energy along multiple tracks for a lot of people. Another thing I have written down is new spectrums of relief. There is a lot of tension that should not go unnoticed. Okay, health focus, shedding of previous habitual structures, which could also lead to like an adapting of certain belief systems as well. So relief is an important thing to have in 2025. Something should be relieved. Something should be lighter, again, like a feather. Something should not be weighed down. So I do make that does make me think that 2025 is quite a health year. Okay. It makes me think that something that was, again, burdening us before should be in some way off the table. Something that had been untreated should be treated now. Something that has been mysterious may also come to light as well. So there should be a focus put on long-term health problems. Okay, there should be a focus also put on things that have been hard for too long. All right, like, and you really see in 2025 like a refusal to solve a problem. And this can be like very annoying as well, because you'll see it also in people around you. And especially in, okay, business partnerships, family relationships, any type of obligatory relationships. This can be a very frustrating thing where you see like people just are so burdened or so dense about certain things, and they're not willing to even get out of that. So again, perpetual loops of density, very obvious in 2025. And, you know, we can't make someone else, you know, be free sometimes. And this can be very hard for people who are actually getting out of density, or for people who are working out anomalies or detaching from the previous pain, healing per se. It can be hard to see how easy it is in 2025, and also how other people are not willing to consider it. Okay, so like this is one of the tricky parts of 2025 where, you know, we can only control ourselves, right? We can't force someone else to heal. We can't force someone else to be okay. And, you know, we can't forgive ourselves sometimes for bringing density into our own lives because we're over-focused on someone else's free will, or we're over-focused on the fact that someone else is in a bad way. You know, empathy in shadow. Not really empathy in shadow, more like codependence coming up, or not even codependence. I'm trying to find the right word, where it's like you're invested in whether someone else is okay or not, or you're invested in someone else's healing journey, and if they do poorly or if they have more pain or density, it's like it messes you up too because you're so invested in their healing journey. I'm not sure what to call it. It could be empathy, it could be codependence, but it's not. We might have to be less affected by the choices of other people, or we might have to focus more on ourselves in a way, or we might have to see it, at least if we're very determined by the status of other people, because you could really see like, okay, too much of my energy is going to someone else's well-being. And, you know, there can also be a, what's the right word? People in 2025 who are in a very dense place, or like not really wanting to heal, that's going to be very obvious. And it can also begin to create odd dynamics where there can be, what do I want to say? It's kind of hard to describe. It's not exactly an anger, but it's almost an undercurrent of dissatisfaction that other people are healing. Okay. So that frequency difference, or the difference between two people's frequency, will get more obvious because of the lightening that's happening. So it's going to be harder for people to stay together. This has been coming up since 2023, actually. Harder for people to be in the same spaces if they're not on the same frequencies. People also not just submitting to putting themselves in the same area karmas when they're pursuing healing as people who are pursuing density. So there's going to be like a growing disparity, maybe a growing contrast between frequencies in 2025. So we have to, I think, not get so attached to other people's free will choices. That's what I keep coming back to with that, because that's going to be a big margin in 2025. Is like, how attached are you to someone else's behavior? How attached are you to someone else's healing process? And can you forgive yourself for being negatively affected by someone else's free will choices? Especially when it's not like forced upon you. Okay, so I'm seeing some people continuing to put themselves in bad situations without having to, because it's like a loop again, or it's like what they've always done. And they may have to change that momentum this year. Okay, the final intuitive message that I'm going to talk about before we get into sign by sign, okay, is one of my favorites, actually, best for last, I think. Consider, okay, at the end of 2024 here, or entering 2025, really whenever you're listening to this video in 2025 or beyond, consider straightening your paths in advance. Okay, this is simple, but this is a big thing for 2025. It's not future tripping. It's very direct and deliberate. Okay, this is not abstract. This is not thinking about things that have not yet happened exactly. This is more like knowing, okay, if you drop a ball, it's going to hit the ground and bounce back up, and not getting like super attached to that not happening. Okay, there's certain, you know, the waterfall flows upward. We have this weird thing coming with like, you know, Neptune and Saturn being on the cusps of Pisces and Aries. It can get very kind of like mystical and very inchoate in some ways, very magical time of year, time of human experience, okay? Consider straightening your paths in advance. Consider paths of least resistance. Consider going around the mud rather than through the mud, okay? In times like these, people actually have a lot of access to understanding what is probably oncoming, or understanding like you know, okay, more of this ingredient will mean more of this. Okay, the more sugar that I eat, the less energy I'm going to have. The more caffeine that I drink, the more of an energy deficit I'll run. You know, the more that I, you know, exercise something that has a stress injury, the worse that that's going to get. We have a lot of foresight here, more than we would like to admit. And we also have in 2026 this exact conjunction of Saturn and Neptune in Aries, which is going to be a major new beginning for humanity. And for most individuals, some type of new beginning, like the Fool archetype, okay, like something starts over, something is fresh, something is new. And we're going to get a dose of that during June and July of 2025. So, you know, Saturn, I believe it is, will go into Aries, and then also Neptune is going in, I think, in March. Yeah, I mean, we can talk a little bit about overarching transits here. You know, obviously it's the Jupiter-Saturn squares, as I was saying. Jupiter is changing sign from Gemini to Cancer this year. I believe it's in June. Neptune is at anaretic Pisces starting the year 29, and then goes into Aries on March 30th. And it's staying in Aries until November 25th, where it will retrograde back into Pisces. And then Saturn is going into Aries in June as well. So we are going to have a Saturn-Neptune conjunction in Aries this summer, but it's not going to finalize until 2026. And when we don't have the retrogrades back, kind of like what Pluto has done, right? When outer planets change signs, they tend to retrograde on the cusp. And it's not until they get off of those cusps that the energy comes in totality. And I mean, a lot of it's already happening in 2025, you all. A lot of these new beginnings are already starting to come in. So some lucky people will give themselves a little bit of time in reflection and finality before June. It's an interesting time for sabbaticals and regrouping, but some people also just have to keep on keeping on, because it depends on each person and the loop structures that they have going on, because those are about to change in 2026. And we're about to get onto new cycles, new loops, new beginnings, right? So here, right, especially coming out of 2024, consider straightening your path. Consider, like, what am I working towards? What am I doing this for? It really freaks a lot of people out to think about it sometimes, I know. But let it, okay? Like, sit with that. Like, if you have any type of discomfort, like, gosh, I feel so uncomfortable when I think about what am I doing this career for? What am I participating in this industry for? What am I in this area for? It's very heavy and dense for some people, but that's lightening up in this year ahead. And there is a lot of comfort we can take in knowing that some of the disorganized or chaotic paths are ending or have ended, and a lot of enjoyment, I think, in straightening out the path toward these new beginnings that are going to start manifesting as early as June of 2025, and then definitely into 2026. So yes, that is what I'm feeling for the general intuitive for the 2025 year ahead. And without further ado, I'm going to start on the sign by sign now. Do hit the thumbs up button for this video to help get it out there. Also, check out the description box. This channel is on Patreon. Also, subscriptions are very helpful to this channel. Hit the subscribe button and turn on the bell notifications. If you would like to say thank you for this video, I would so appreciate that. But yes, let's get into the sign by sign. Okay, so as always, first we have Aries for the year of 2025. Okay, hi Aries, let's talk about you. So 2025 year ahead, the activation has already happened because you know it's oncoming. So yeah, we have Neptune and Saturn and Chiron all moving into your sign this year. We will also have Uranus sextile you once it hits Gemini. But yes, these planets will be retrograding back. So there is kind of like a foreshadowing happening for you all this year. There is a new injection of energy, I feel, coming for you all at the life force level. And one of the most important things for Aries in 2025 is beginning to distance yourself from the previous chapters. Again, detachment from the previous. Things are lining up to be much more positive for you, much more natural, much more familiar, okay, having all of these outer planets either in your sign or in a sign that is sextile to you, right? Both Uranus and Pluto being sextile to you, that's very empowering. The sextile angle in astrology is a natural harmonious flow of energy. It means that there's not going to be such a need to push for things. There's not going to be such a need to try so hard, which could be kind of like a challenge for Aries as well. Like I could see there being a bit of a complex around effort versus result, which you guys might need to really begin to rewire in 2025, like allowing things to be easier, not having to cause yourself so much pain to accomplish something, realizing that things are already here for you, and also realizing that there is a totally new path to embark. Okay, new paths to embark is one of the psychic downloads I'm getting for you. So it's not really like continuing the previous. Okay, it's not really like going back to that familiar territory and trying again. Any type of regression, any type of past reversion, any type of, you know, trying to reestablish yourself in the hometown, these things would have to be really imbued with brand new stories within it in order to work out. Or many of you may just need to get into like territories, jobs, industries, or life stories that are totally new, okay? So this is also going to like maximize in 2026, okay? I'm just taking my jacket off, Aries. It's getting warm in here right as I'm like trying to do your reading, okay? Like suddenly I'm feeling a lot of heat, and I'm feeling like, oh my gosh, the fire element is finally coming back in. You know, I have a fire trine in my own chart, and there's not been a lot of fire element over these last few years. It's really been such a yin abundance, right? Water and earth. So the heat might be turning up for you guys, but it's especially in 2026, because when I was starting to think about 2026 that heat really started to pick up. You're going to get a little bit of exposure to this in June and July, maybe through November, when we have obviously Neptune and Saturn both there and Chiron in your sign. But only in 2026 will we get that final conjunction of Saturn and Neptune in your sign, and then it's not going to retrograde back, right? So here is a year, Aries, where I don't want to see you guys like burning out, okay? I don't want to see you guys overdoing things. It feels like a time, you know, knowing that especially June through November of 2025, that there's going to start this foreshadowing process, or there's going to start, for some of you, a new beginning, but it may even, for some of you, wait until 2026, but it's so close one way or another. For some of you, 2025, especially like January through May, okay, there might be a lot of past stuff you're having to look at. You might be having to wrap up the previous. You might be having to package the old situation. You might be having to make conclusions in order to prepare for this like new takeoff, this new blast off that's coming into your life. So consider that, like to think about it chronologically, like consider January, especially through March, like this is right here, you know, before Neptune goes into Aries, before Neptune hits your sign. Although, you know, it's pretty charged with the energy of Pisces because, you know, the retrograde cycles and it's going to be at 0 degrees. Nonetheless, by the time Neptune goes into your sign in March, I kind of feel like a lot of you have to be ready to just experience the new. But for some of you, it may delay. It depends on the other placements in your chart. It could delay as long as an entire year. So it could be as early as March 2025 or as late as like February or March of 2026 that these grand new beginnings are starting. And depending on your chart, depending on what degree Aries you are, if you're an earlier degree Aries, you know, it might be sooner. If you're later, it might be later, and also later in the oncoming years. But the thing that I feel for you, Aries, is like there are these grand new beginnings coalescing. You already see them. You already see that light at the end of the tunnel. There's been a narrowing, and you're about to kind of like break through to a larger kind of expanse, but it's not going to be a familiar expanse. So it's almost like you have to have the things in the previous set up right in order to enter that well, and in order to not like want to backtrack. Okay, so this need to backtrack, this need to wrap up the previous. This is very much something that 2023 through early 2025 would have focused on. So try to get all of that done. And, you know, by again, the middle of the year, June through like November, December 2025, I see some of you, yes, still in a liminal phase, but most of you are going to really be queuing up into these gravitational experiences, kind of like being on the wings to a stage. I am seeing some of you getting more public. I'm seeing some of you expressing yourself to larger groups of people. It just depends on what phase you're at, and each individual can only understand, like, are you in the wings or are you on the stage? What is that timeline looking like for you? You know, you want to have your energy ready. You want to eat properly before you're on the stage. You want to prepare yourself to be like that. So it takes a lot of preparation. It takes a lot of concentration and focus. So I do feel that a big part of 2025 for you all is also knowing what you're trying to express and really holding that image inside and starting to prepare the surrounding, almost like preparing the backdrop, preparing the auditorium, preparing things so that it hits right. Okay. So yes, part of 2025 is a preparational year for you all. And then for some Aries, it's also like actually debuting or stepping out onto the stage. And the rest of the zodiac can't understand it though, the way that you can, because it's such a big deal to have these outer planets going into your sign. Also, you know, having Chiron getting very late in your sign, entering the year with the North Node in your sign, but it moves very quickly into Pisces, okay? And that's going to also be perhaps a change in overarching goal as well for you. So there's something to learn from the past year, year and a half about like what you're striving for, what you're aiming for, what you're orienting toward. And so a lot of it's happening in the mental plane, you know, a lot of it's happening in regards to like, what is my idea and vision that I'm pursuing, and how do I actually materially move towards that on a path? And I see a lot of Aries actually just wanting to be on more linear paths. So wanting to make progress, not being so inchoate about things, not being so like all over the place, but like moving linearly down a cardinal path. As we're going to get into a much more cardinal year. So don't be afraid to do that, Aries. Don't be afraid to step onto simple, linear point A, point B paths. Don't be afraid to make that progress. I feel like that's going to be maybe very healing for you actually to make progress in a more linear way and perhaps in a less poetic or a less kind of roundabout way. So understand what paths in your life might be like that and enjoy the process of embarking those and preparing those. But 2025, yeah, it's preparatory. And 2026 is going to be like the major launch for a lot of you all. So knowing your timeline, knowing how long a year is, it's not that long these days. And basically not being afraid to compel yourself and perhaps your support structure to move with more substance and more power down this oncoming linear path. So that's what I'm feeling for you guys for 2025. Okay, Taurus, 2025 year ahead forecast. Hi, Taurus. I hope that you're all doing well. I'm so excited to read for you all for the 2025 year ahead. So Uranus has been in your sign now since 2018. It is now going to move into the anaretic degree of your sign and transit on this cusp of Gemini and Taurus, trine Pluto right in Aquarius. At the 0 degree, Uranus-Pluto trines, that's going to be very interesting, as well as Neptune-Saturn semi-sextiles, okay? I'm just thumbing through my notes to see these dates again. Okay, so I believe it's June of 2025 when Uranus crosses into Gemini, meaning like, okay, we've got 6 months here with Uranus in the anaretic degree of your sign. As an anaretic Scorpio sun myself, I'm going to be having these exact Uranus oppositions that should be interesting for me, especially as a content creator here on YouTube. Gosh, that's very Uranian. Okay, so Uranus at the anaretic degree of your sign, something is in its like most powerful expression, but it may not be able to continue much longer in this expression. So a lot of 2025 is about reaping the benefit of something you've contributed to for a long time. So closure power, okay? Also legacy content or legacy concerns, like, okay, I've gone through this career, or I've gone through this industry, or I've had this long running like 6 or 7 year story, right? Uranus going through a sign. And now I have to button this up and complete this leg of this journey in the right way. So I'm getting chills. And it's actually feeling emotional to me because at the same time, you guys are having these sextiles from Saturn and Neptune and Pisces, okay, before they go into Aries this year. And then also the year's going to end with that too. So there's going to be this kind of like, there can be tears in 2025 Taurus. It's not sadness. There can be tears of joy. Also knowing that you're completing a project and it's like a passion project and it's finishing. Okay. And it's like, I've poured so much of my soul into this, or this has been what my life has revolved around for like 7 years. I'm getting major chills. Like, this is what my life has revolved around for all of this time. And I see that it's like completing. Okay. In some ways, this can be like the World card in the tarot. It can also be like the Death card in the tarot, where, you know, it's finishing. This cycle is finishing. And I think that over these last few years, you know, with Uranus having been transiting your sign, we also had like those Saturn-Uranus squares in 2021. I think that in some ways, these current projects or these current paths that you've had in your life, they've given you prestige in some way, but they've also kind of kept you up at night. Like, I feel kind of like there's been a volatility, or, you know, Uranus is debilitated in Taurus, right? Why is it debilitated in Taurus? Because it's too grounding and it makes the electrical element of Uranus too kind of like overpowering. So there's something that can be way overbearing during Uranus and Taurus. There are things that can be way too hard for what they return. Okay, so lack in reciprocity. There can also be like, obviously, stress injuries, right, with Uranus and Taurus, or, you know, burning of resources, burning of, you know, subtlety as well. Like, there's something about Uranus and Taurus that can be very blunt and very like charged, like so electrically charged that it's kind of like overbearing again for people to take. So like, that's going to be wrapping up. But at the same time, you know, it's kind of a catch-22, because a lot of you have really like charged your projects or your relationships or your goals with something really magical as well. Or things have been charged like with love, like you've put love into this business, or you've put love, maybe like too much love almost into this business, or too much love into some of these projects to the extent that you could be drained, that you could even have like not enough left over for yourself. I've known a lot of Taurus people who've become very entrepreneurial, for example, during this time, but most of the money that their businesses have generated have just gone straight back into the business. So it can be kind of like, it's incredible, it's awesome, but does it really mean anything to you at a material level? Not really, if it doesn't give you anything, but like, you created it, so it's got all your energy in it, but it's not exactly that connected to you anymore. So like, this is also a point in time where, for example, your projects, your businesses, your whatever you're charging with energy become somewhat autonomous. And it's almost like a child, right? Like, you have a child, and during childhood, they're very reliant on you, but eventually they become their own people and they control their own lives, and they sometimes make good decisions and bad decisions. Businesses sometimes flourish or decline, okay? And it's not really up to you, even though you created it. Okay, so this is kind of what I'm seeing for Taurus this year, is it's like not taking it too personally. For example, if your business declines, if your adult child makes bad decisions, okay, there's going to be some stuff like that. And if you over-personalize it, it could mess up your health. It could mess up your self-confidence. Try to understand that, okay? Like, maybe it's an industry-wide thing. Maybe it's a cultural thing. I'm seeing some Taurians like applying themselves too much into some type of thing that's bigger than themselves, like a political goal or a cultural issue or an industrial issue. And it's like, yes, maybe you do have some type of influence over it in a micro way, but at the end of the day, the macro industry or the macro culture is going to decide how your business does to some extent. You know, if you're a creator on social media, that algorithm or that, you know, AI situation, or, you know, the landscape of it is going to kind of steer it as much, if not more, than you can. So 2025 Taurus, because okay, lots of messages coming in. We got Uranus at the anaretic degree. When this transit started in 2018, okay, I did make a video about that. If you guys want to go and search on my channel, you can just type in Uranus and Taurus and find my old 2018 video. you had a lot of steering capacity over it because it was so new, or like, yeah, the small things that you did create major ripples. But now it feels that things have grown, or even like the garden of life, where I want to say like your field of life is so expanded and so huge that it almost just takes a major machine to function it, or it's going to have a life of its own. So if you're a Taurus who doesn't have a control problem, or if you're a Taurus who is practicing positive detachment, which is necessary for 2025, right, with the Pluto in Aquarius year, right, you'll do fine. You'll do fine in 2025. But notice when you start taking it personally, like, oh no, my business didn't profit as much, that means I messed up somewhere. Or my adult child is having some kind of crisis, that means that I messed up in parenting. And, you know, it doesn't make these things incorrect either. Like, maybe you did mess up a few years ago in the way your business was put together, or maybe there were mistakes made as a parent, but like, I feel like you guys have to really compartmentalize it, right? Because things can start to kind of leak off onto each other, so you can be kind of like overburdening yourself with these things previously, and there's going to be a lot of like measuring, okay? And some of us might need therapy, okay? Some of us Taurus people might need some type of overarching lens, or some kind of record keeping practice or something to understand, okay, yes, this was my fault, this was not my fault, some type of accountable plan, some kind of like energy of, I don't know, parole or something could be coming up for some Taurus people, where there's like, or a CPA, or some kind of someone whose role is to like account for everything that was done, audits, CPAs, parole officers, okay? I don't know why that's coming up, but not to freak any of you all out, but yes, I do feel that this is part of the anaretic Taurus Uranus energy, where it's been so charged with energy, there's been so much investment that in some cases we have to like really measure it out and understand what went where. So it's great this year to meet this halfway. If you run a business, hire a good CPA, okay? Have things really measured out well, understand, wow, you mean to tell me I've put all this money into this business? I thought that I didn't put that much into it. Wow, that really changes how I feel about it. Also with the diet, okay, so food, Uranus in Taurus also has a connection to food. Having like a dietitian, having an accountable partner or something to eat properly with. I've seen a lot of Taurus people betraying their body in the negative, and then some also totally healing it, right? But that's more of a minority. Because again, so many Taurians are so invested in something else, maybe a partnership or a relationship or a project, that they might not be thinking about their body enough. So yes, enter the year of 2025, that can't continue. Okay, by June 2025 and July, when Uranus goes into Gemini, it will be clear as day. Okay, the communication will come through essentially, and the charge will really change. Like what you can afford to put into something will really change, and what you can also justify. It's more like what you can justify putting into something energetically will change. And you're going to start getting real with yourself, and you're going to start like really understanding in a very concise way, you know, I could do this differently, or I could have a little shift or detour even. So something is finalizing, right, in 2025. Final times in an industry or space like this, I do feel that some things are on their last leg. Some of you might be cashing out or counting up. And asking yourself, what is in it for me? You know, what is this actually doing for me? Some of us won't be able to give it all for a certain result anymore. And then certain addictive or even manic cycles are going to finalize and leave through some type of situation in our lives. So also revolt, okay? Certain partnerships can go out of control. Certain businesses can just like get a little bit chaotic, and you know, it's like electricity, right? You know, if you've ever seen like an electric transcender explode before, or if you've ever seen electricity be out of control, that is the energy of Uranus and Taurus. So that's getting reined in, that's getting in some cases just shut off for some people. And some of us do have to do that, like the dark room, shutting down the nervous system a little bit, resting, sleeping. I feel that some of you guys also need rest this year. It may already be done in a way. Like this may already be coming into 2025, what that specific business could do, what that specific relationship could provide. And now you might just need to begin resting, or this could be like next year. Okay, so one way or another, it feels like a finalizing time for me. Don't be afraid to essentially cash out of certain things, account for certain things, you know, quote unquote, like count your money and move on type of energy. That's what I'm feeling is best for you guys. Also, getting real with yourself about what certain things can provide. We don't want to see you guys on a path toward nothing, okay, thinking that it's something it's not. So it's like getting real with ourselves. And then for those Taurus people who've already been here for a few years, you've already done the thing, you've already let this project culminate. Now you can begin to reorient and select a higher level project, okay? Or your relationship can go to the next level, or your body health can go to a level you've never been at before. So some of you who've been super successful with like your body health, for example, you'll feel your body operating in a way that it never has before, and that's going to be very healing for you all. So, yeah, it's a volatile kind of structure, this anaretic Taurus Uranus, but it is going to account and provide a lot of data, okay, about how things are. We're going to get clear. We're going to know, try to not get emotional about it, try to just orient in the best way forward. Okay, Gemini, 2025 year ahead forecast. Okay, Uranus is coming into your sign. Whoa. Uranus in Gemini. That was actually, I believe, what World War II started under. I know that that was a major part of World War II, was having Uranus in Gemini. So it can in some cases be like a military expansion. It can in some cases be some type of industrial militant hyper focus. Okay, lots of flying around, whether it's from a militant sense or not. I'm seeing a lot of flying around for you. Okay, so you guys might be on flying a lot this year, maybe traveling, maybe Three of Wands, right? Like seeing this new horizon. I'm seeing some of you on ships as well, with Saturn and Neptune and Pisces squaring you. Also, we have these Jupiter-Saturn squares, with Jupiter still being in your sign right this year. I do have dates for you as well. Let me thumb through my notes. This guy, the crazy astrologer here, thumbing through the notes. Okay. Yeah, Jupiter goes into Cancer in June of 2025. And that's also, yes, when Saturn goes into Aries too. Neptune is in Aries. So things move from that mutable energy that we've come through the second half of 2024 and go through the first half of 2025 with. And then it's going into a cardinal energy. So the first half of the year is going to feel very different than the second half for you all. The first half of the year for Gemini, take advantage of that Jupiter return, okay? Don't be afraid to accept some kind of benevolence or abundance into your life. There could be a higher profit margin. There could be some kind of prize or honor or award that comes into your life. You are having a Jupiter on your sun sign, okay, which is one of the most positive transits in astrology. Although, yes, Jupiter is debilitated, so there's a little bit of a catch-22 with Jupiter in Gemini, but nonetheless, I think it's very positive for you all. What I do know, though, okay, not to make these messages in any way negative, like enjoy it for the first half of the year. Things do have to calm down, though, in the second half of the year. You know, all of those engines going and airplanes flying and motorcycles driving down the road and this sort of very belligerent energy that's coming up in the first half of the year with Jupiter in Gemini and Uranus moving towards Gemini. It is going to have to calm down when Jupiter goes into Cancer. So something that you have in your life might also be too vigorous, or it might be too multidimensional. It might be too undefinable, and it's going to have to calm down and become more crystallized. So this is going to be an interesting thing for both you and Cancer. Okay, I'm going to talk about this in Cancer's reading too, because this is for both of you with Jupiter being on your signs. It's like these things that used to be really undefinable, these things that used to be really like a firework going off, now condensing down into something much more calm, much more organizable, something that's much more attainable as well, or even more properly fitting. So it's like all of that money suddenly turns into a nice minimalist household. Okay, like finally being able to buy a house. Okay, that happens a lot when Jupiter's on the sun. Or all of those years like frantically dating around or frantically connecting with other people. Now there's a nice, concise, easy marriage, and that's all over. Okay, there's no more of that. All of that chaotic business, all of that chaotic sort of manic energy now has condensed down to a sabbatical, and that's not there now. And there's a regrouping and a coming back to self. Don't be afraid of that. Some Geminis can fear that, but this is like essentially Jupiter going into Cancer, right? So that's going to be happening around June. Things will have to calm down a bit by the second half of the year. Although there is a high-flying, energetic kind of get-it-done energy also as well for you all. Take things higher. Okay, you know, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but you know, the rocket, it goes into the second part of the atmosphere. It's got to let go of some of those boosters because they're not necessary. Take it lighter, take it higher, make it easier, make it more, you know, Jupiter, right? The ruler of Sagittarius in your sign, it always wants you to take things higher. It wants you to take the high road. Don't argue with people. Don't sink to negative people's level. Take it higher. Also, any business, any pursuit, any goal, try to just send it to the stratosphere, okay? Don't put it at a low level. Like, don't watch out for the associations. Watch out for, you know, who is the face of your endeavor, who is, who are you representing to? Take it higher. Take it higher. Also, don't forget, one of the main things about Jupiter in Gemini was quickly resolving things with correspondence. That's one of the positives of that transit. In the first half of the year, you guys might still need to do that, especially when Jupiter is direct. Okay, so like March through June 2025, great time to write correspondence, great time to solve a long-running problem with one note or one email. Great time also to receive really abundant correspondence, sort of like a, I don't know, windfall of energy, kind of like the Eight of Wands in the tarot coming in for you all during that time. Don't be afraid to thank people. Don't be afraid to elevate people if you have that kind of power, as they will always remember it and they will always return graces. Okay, so also if you subordinate someone or if you push someone down or create some type of negative thing, they will return those favors as well. So like we're definitely in a phase where it's like what we put out we get back. If we're two-faced, other people will be two-faced to us. There's been a big two-faced thing during Jupiter and Gemini. So try to put one solid face forward, try to take it higher, and try to alleviate some of the confusion through precise correspondence. And then, yes, calming down in the second half of the year, coming back to center, and in some cases for some of you, buying a house or condensing something down into more of a crystalline, definable nature. So let's move on to Cancer. Okay, hi Cancer. I'm just filming through, going through my notes here while also filming. Yes, let's talk about you guys for the year ahead of 2025. So similar to Gemini, because Jupiter is transiting in through Gemini and into Cancer halfway through this year, so there's a similarity. That which has been overburned, overdone, gone wild is going to be condensed down into one outcome, okay? I do see some of you buying houses, okay? After Jupiter's in Cancer, I see some of you having a new living situation. I see some of you, okay, you've had all this chaos in your life. You've been sort of like going around in circles or having different things in different places. All of it could be consolidated to a household. So like instead of, for example, going out to the gym every day, then going to the coffee shop, then going to the university, then going to your job, then going to like your family's house to get your side hustle done, then like going to your friend's house or your significant other's house to visit with them. I'm seeing it kind of like all consolidate to the household. So like our house now has like a gym in it, and we have like our own coffee machine. Okay, we're maybe now doing study from home virtually instead of going out. And maybe now there's like a marriage and the spouse now lives in the home, and all of it, and we're self-employed. Okay, so I'm seeing like a full consolidation to the house, which is why Jupiter is exalted in Cancer. And I'm seeing an entirely new exaltation for you through that. Now, this may not be 2025 for some of you all, but this year or next year, I'm seeing something of that come through, and I'm seeing a possibility there. And I'm seeing that some of you don't need to overthink it. And I'm seeing also that you need to see some of the energy drain that has come through being so all over the place, and like what it's worth and what the structures that have supported that sort of all over the place thing are. And obviously not every single Cancer is going to consolidate like this, but think about this in other areas of your life where things have been too kind of like scattered, or things have been too chaotic and they need to be consolidated down. So having like a business that has way too many moving parts consolidated into one entity, okay? Having like disorganized phones, disorganized computers, disorganized cabinets, okay? A lot of random stuff in your house that makes no sense. I already saw this coming out of 2024, that a lot of that was what was causing people to be so stressed out and weighed down. And that was one of the most powerful things for me, as someone with quite a bit of Cancer energy in my chart, was beginning to box everything up, beginning to go through items, minimizing, right? We have Pluto in Aquarius now. It wants a lighter touch. It wants things to be more routine and more kind of definable. So you might have to go through a lot of the things in your house. You might have to go through and get rid of or donate or sell certain things. And I think that it just kind of needs to be a line item in your daily routine or in your daily budget, as you're going to see 2025 really rewards you for consolidating things, okay, for simplifying things. Okay, so that's sort of been a dialogue more so about the second half of the year when Jupiter's in Cancer. But yeah, we do have January through May with Jupiter in Gemini. So something about that is like counting the days, okay? I don't love that energy for Cancer. Don't impulsively jump out of anything or into anything during January through May. It would be better to just kind of slow things down a little bit, to not overcomplicate, to not overspeak, to not make things too hard. Also, I feel like any housing issues, any issue with the sense of home that you have in your own body, so this could also be health issues, as the fourth house is about, yes, the structural home, but also the body and how it's functioning. There's oncoming relief when Jupiter goes into your sign, but yeah, we do have to get through this first 5 months of the year. If things are out, don't worry, but begin to kind of organize through some of that chaos and start to go ahead and meet it halfway, I feel like. And start to, you know, maybe design your dream house per se, or begin manifesting solutions to all of these problems. Begin seeing yourself also as perhaps more detached from other people's emotional issues. I do feel that a lot of the scattered or chaotic energy for Cancer right now does deal with being too tied to other people's problems and vicariously kind of assuming problems, debts, bills, health problems that other people have. So there may need to be new boundaries, right? With Saturn trine from Pisces and Neptune trine in Pisces, a final restructuring of boundaries, a final restructuring of commitments and obligations in a different way, and sort of knowing that you want a more gentle path forward. So gentle rains, okay, will be coming for you. Healing rains, healing, oncoming relief during Jupiter in Cancer. So that's June, right, or July, that general time. And then it really probably won't be until like November or December of 2025 that you can even really feel this. Like, you guys might be coming back and listening to this quite a few times during this year ahead and thinking, oh my gosh, Sky, this is just like, this sounds so great. You know, this idea of consolidating my own household, this idea of having this sort of like gentle rain energy in my life. This sounds so idealistic and I just don't see it for myself. But you'll be surprised by like November or December, like seriously the end of this calendar year, how much you've actually been able to bring that into effect, or how much that with like a stroke of the pen could just be there for you. Stroke of the pen, okay, that's coming in for you guys. Saturn trine Sun, also Jupiter in your sign. One signature and the paradigm is just over for all of those like abusive dynamics or all of those codependent dynamics. But yeah, you guys do have to do it, okay? You have to do it. You got to sign something sometimes, or you've got to veto out some things too. Sometimes it's starting new things, and other times it's that veto power, and saying, no, that's not going to work for me. Or you may see certain correspondence, okay, in the earlier part of this year that are kind of like tests for you. Like, okay, I can't accept this service being so poor, or I can't accept, being given something that doesn't work, or this may not have to do with anybody else, but it could even just be with yourself, like in your own journal, being like, I can't accept treating myself this way, or I can't accept housing myself this way, or putting my body through this kind of work anymore. And then the new thing will start manifesting, and then it might even be the end of this year or into the next year, depending on when Jupiter in Gemini goes into your chart. Depending on what degree you are, it may not be until then that actually it starts physically coming through, and then it's very different and it's very gentle, but we've got to want it, and we've got to sometimes make the deliberate choices. But it's very good, Cancer, very good once we get into that Jupiter in Cancer energy, but it's a bit hostile and it's a bit scattered up until then. So don't get freaked out about that, but do kind of like learn, okay, about how to come through that. So anyway, Leo, okay, Leo for 2025 year ahead. Mars is in your sign this year, Leo. Uranus will be moving into sextile you. Pluto's on your axis, okay. Saturn and Neptune will be trining you. We went through quite a few years there. Honestly, ever since 2020, when things were kind of like out of your chart in a way, all that Capricorn energy, right? And even the Pisces energy, both quincunxes, both forming a yod to you. That was very difficult to interpret, very difficult to adapt to. Well, now it's very active and very clear what you have to do. Mars is wonderful in your sign. Although there could be a bit of anger about the way that things were, we might sometimes get a little bit mad realizing how much we didn't treat ourselves right, or how poorly treated we were by other people. Try to not focus too much on it. That's a big thing for Leo in 2025. I'm angry that those people treated me that way. I'm angry that, my parents or my adult children or my family were so selfish, or sort of unknowingly, or sometimes not, kind of like abused my time or energy, okay, as Mars is retrograding right in Cancer and Leo, so it's debilitated in Cancer, and so that Cancer energy is going to come a little bit also through Mars's direct cycle through Leo. There's a lot coming through about, gosh, I can't believe I had to go through that. I can't believe that I worked myself that way. I can't believe that my employer treated me so bad. Oh, I'm self-employed. Did I treat myself that badly? Mars retrograde in Cancer, right? Moving into Leo. How are we treating ourselves? What are we putting ourselves through? What do we expect from ourselves? What do we expect ourselves to go through, and why are we doing it? Okay, why are we doing what we're doing? What is the end goal? There's going to be a lot of communication throughout all of this year about the why factor, about the motivation. And also questioning in some cases why other people would do this to us, why other people, this is kind of debilitated, and a big transformation is due for Leo this year around these, like, why me, why them, why is this happening? And instead, I feel like y'all are going to get really charged with this Mars energy, and you're going to start getting what actually matters done. So Jupiter is not, near your sign yet, but it's going into your collective 12th house. And Jupiter in Leo, okay, I guess that will be like 2027-ish, late 2026. Not that far out. No, Jupiter, sometimes I get it mixed up. Jupiter is only like a year in each sign. So no, 2026, right? Jupiter will be in Leo. That's not far away. That's a glow up for you guys. That's when the real goals come in. That's when the real energy comes up. So what does it take? Okay. What does it take to get that? Well, we've got Jupiter in Gemini this year. We've got Jupiter going into Cancer. Some of you guys need a break, but some of you guys need to start actually doing something on routine. It depends on the Leo. Like, if you've been overdoing yourself, or if you're burned out, you're going to need a break. If you've been kind of like in a malaise or kind of like just stagnant, you're going to need to maybe start getting in like the gym, or you're going to need to start doing things on repeat to work that energy out. And for many Leos, it's actually both. Okay, so you've got to rest certain things and work other things more, because something is overdone in one area and underdone in the other. So we've got to reappropriate the energy, right? Like that was one of the intuitive messages of this video, reappropriating energy, putting certain things that were in one canister into a different canister. You know, it's going to feel very rewarding, Leos. It's going to feel just awesome to soften some things that have been too overbearing, and to like harden things that are too undurable or too weak. Because I do feel like things are a little bit off. You know, it's been kind of hard for you guys over the last few years, honestly. It's like scratching the itch in the wrong place or something in some cases. And this year we'll start to work on that in a good way. Careful though also for like mental buzzing. Jupiter in Gemini sextile you could be thinking about things you don't really have to think about. You could be hung up, okay, on things that are not that important. Like, try to really feel out where the sphere of importance is. Try to feel out also which spheres are currently flaring in your life. Like, how many focuses do you have? How many projects do you have going on? What are your focuses? What are your goals right now? You have to be careful about being too much of an empire here. And I do feel that there is a need for an adaptation of new strategies, where maybe you have these very focused goals, or instead of like 6 goals, maybe there are only 2 or 3 now, and there are better strategies going after them. I feel like there could be a diversification issue. Like, you might feel like you have to have multiple different jobs, or so many different investments, or so many different things going on, out of a fear that any one of them could fail. And if you're not careful, you can spread things too thin, or you can spread things out to where nothing is that meaningful. But also, if you get too singular, then yeah, it's too risky. So there's a rebalancing in 2025. So like, maybe some things aren't spread so thin. Maybe some things are not also so singular anymore. So reappropriation of energy is what I keep coming back to you all. Problem solving, okay, getting out of some of these anomaly situations, getting past puzzles, getting past bills, getting, okay, this is hard to articulate, but as a Leo rising myself, this was something that was really prevalent that I noticed in 2024. It's like, okay, these things that are not that important are like right in front of me. I've got to get it done. You know, little short-term projects, short-term obligations, and you get like to where you're thinking too much about it too often. Try to just get this stuff done. Like, if you see something out of order in your house, instead of like looking at it and thinking about it and losing sleep over it, like, just fix that problem. If you know that that bill is oncoming, just pay it now. Okay, get ahead of it and stop holding yourself up. And this is going to kind of give you a quantum surge of energy, where you actually come through this year maybe with like 3 or 4 times the result, just by like moving through things rather than getting stuck, like overthinking them or procrastinating or anything like that. So that's a great strategy to add to your repertoire here, Leo, where basically, okay, things aren't spread so thin. I've kind of cut back some of the edges of this situation. I have diversification, but not to the degree where I'm spread too thin or to where I'm too singular. And I also have more of a proactive way of getting things done, sort of a quantum surge. I don't get hung up on things, and we're just like kind of getting through. And you're going to come out this year with a lot, I think, of free space and free time, which may end up being a great opportunity for some type of cycle of rest, or some type of regrouping or self-rediscovery process that could be queuing up for you guys even by like September or October of this year. As I do feel like your body is, or the general body, collective body of Leo is starting to like reform its body, or reform its relationship with its like actual physical self. So that's going to be a lot of what late 2025 and 2026 are about for you. But until then, I would say about January through August, it's very like get it done, get past it, resolve that problem, surge past it, pay that bill, surge past it, and actually get across the ravine or get across the channel. And then there's a lot of relief coming for you guys once you get out of this funk, essentially. So moving on. Okay, Virgo, in the 2025 year cycle, let's talk about you, Virgo. Okay, Virgos, welcome to your 2025 year ahead forecast. Okay, so we have a turning point coming for you guys in 2025. We have the nodal axis going on to your axis, okay? I believe it's like in the second week of January, so right off the bat in the calendar new year of 2025, all of a sudden there's a major activation. It will be the south node in your sign. Do hit the subscribe button below, as I will make a video about that and talk about that for you. But yes, it feels that something has become too heavy, something has become too dense. There were a lot of things that looked good on paper or sounded good in the mind, but are going to be showing in physical reality differently. This might sound negative at first, but ultimately this is very good because I see you guys really lightening up. If you remember the light like a feather intuitive message that was coming up in this video in the beginning, I really feel that for you in Pisces, okay, your entire axis. So there are a lot of maybe bills that you used to pay that you may not be paying now. There are a lot of maybe overinflated elements of your life from the past that are going to like maybe deflate or be cut out, okay? We're definitely in that very positive King or Queen of Swords energy here, and needing to be in 2025. Obviously, we have Mars coming into your sign this year. We have Saturn and Neptune on your axis. We have the nodes on your axis. We have also Jupiter coming to sextile you, which is going to be very positive from the exalted sign of Cancer. Water trines working very good for you once we get to Scorpio. So it's like understanding yourself better. You can't pull the wool over your own eyes anymore. You see things for what they are. There's no rose-colored glasses anymore for some of these negative situations. There's also no tricking yourself into thinking that a dense situation is light. It's a truth-telling year. Okay, it's a wake-up call year in some cases, and it's also not as complicated. Some of you have to keep the formula very simple in 2025, and like, say for example, you're in some kind of buildup that is not making you feel good, okay, something that's too hard, a job that's too hard, or something that's too unnecessarily expensive monetarily or energetically in your life. It's just going to be so hard in 2025 to like tell yourself a romantic story about it. Like, I'm pushing this boulder up the hill so that eventually I'll be able to what, you know, like that question of like what this entire math equation is equaling to or concluding in is going to have to be something that you think about more in 2025, because any kind of like self-deception is going to unravel. We can't keep leading ourselves on. Okay, there's kind of a throwing of the hands up, I feel, for some Virgo people, in fact, and such a liberating feeling in some cases to not have obligations that you had for the last few years. So are some Virgos going to quit their jobs? I don't know if it's that, but I do feel that anything that is a perpetual loop, like jobs, contracts, obligations, are going to have to be thought about differently, or you might have to reinvigorate that in some way. As I just feel you kind of like branching in or branching out into new territory. But are you too constrained to allow yourself to do it? 2025 immediately. It's like you've got to get real with yourself. And I do see some Virgos almost kind of like checkmating themselves, if that makes sense. So what I mean is like you have what you know to be the right way forward, but you might stand in your own way because it seems like it's routine, or it seems like it's romantic to be kind of caught up like that. Also, any type of health goals that you have, or any kind of healing process that you have chosen in your life, you have to make sure that you're not standing in your own way. You have to make sure also that that's not happening in some way that you perhaps haven't thought about. So it might sound quite obvious for us not to stand in our own way, but what I'm getting at with that is that sometimes we make choices that kind of represent standing in our own way without realizing that. So we delay meaningful paths, or we want to heal something or achieve some type of goal, but we keep doing an action, perhaps impulsively or unconsciously, that's not harmonious with that. We might not be thinking, yeah, I'm going to get in my own way consciously, specifically like that, but we definitely have to check in with all of the unconscious impulses here, all of the things that we think bring relief that aren't. So false light, false relief, all of that stuff. You have Saturn on your axis, right? And it's going to retrograde on your axis this year. Having that Saturn opposition also with Neptune has been a very challenging thing for Virgo people. And it's been something that you guys came out of about the last year and a half dealing with. It's like confronting security in a new way with Saturn, or confronting rules, and we just don't have a lot of rope, it feels like, to keep going against ourselves or unconsciously standing in our own way as Virgos. Also, there are some magic undertones at the same time, because Neptune is also on your axis, and this nodal return with the south node in your sign, that combination of Neptune retrograding on your axis this year, the south node being in your sign, you know, especially during like the water seasons, so Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces season, okay, 2025, all three of those are going to be really imbued with a mysticism, and you're going to start to, I think, feel your life force a little bit differently, and not feel that as something that is like a negative thing, or again, not being able to even consider being against yourself, or just so consciously knowing what contributes to you flowing better in your life and what doesn't, and easily being able to choose. Now, we're going to have a challenge though with will we fall back into the old habits that are not so good, or will we step into this new, more liberated, more kind of mystical and lighter weight version of ourselves? As I'm feeling like a lightening of the spirit needed. I'm feeling some of the old dense heavy thoughts have to go. Some of the previous relationships might have to go too. Anything of like addictions, or, you know, any kind of need to constantly consume something, sugar, alcohol, caffeine, media, anything that is a consumptive grid, which I do feel that this axis and most of the mutable signs are really having to work on this year. That has to not be as mysterious to you or as unsurmountable. You know what I mean? Like, I just can't even think about stopping drinking all the time, or I can't, you know, and, you know, even getting into little loops with ourselves and, you know, almost unconsciously participating in things and like not telling ourselves that we're doing it. That's something with like the Saturn and Neptune and Pisces thing going on, that need for escapism, or being surrounded or connected to people who have a culture around that, where you kind of feel like, in some cases, like an unwilling participant in some kind of mysterious or escapist culture. That's a big thing for Virgo here. And it's like, you guys have to do you. You have to sometimes have these connections remain and not participate, or find your own way through. Or yes, sometimes you have to disconnect from people who are in these escapist habits, or who are perpetuating these addictions. Or, you know, this is a big thing, Virgo, like people in your life, okay, in any capacity in your life, who you might be around, connected to, living with, I don't know, and it's just always imbued with something difficult, okay? And maybe these people have wonderful qualities, maybe there's comedy, maybe it's a human relationship, but in 2025, I feel that we really have to feel that there's an improvement, or there has to be a greater boundary. So people have to want to heal here. People have to want to overcome their narcissism, or their abusive tendencies, or their alcoholism, or whatever it is. Or I feel that we have to start kind of like distancing more, So some Virgos will have more distance with people in their lives who are negative presences. I will say that. And it's going to be hard not to, okay? So like, it would be kind of feeling like almost going against the grain, or against some type of greater cosmic force to like try to maintain some of these relationships, or trying to like keep ourselves intertwined with people or experiences that are like complicated, Okay, so it's easy to leave something or to distance something when it's all bad, but when there are these sparkling or bright or enjoyable components to somebody who's going through some kind of greater story with darkness, that's when it's hard. It's when we have these layered things like, wow, that person is just, they understand me like no other person. They make me laugh like no other person. I feel chemistry with that person, but they're like a severe alcoholic, or, you know, they've never been mean to me, but they treat everybody else very cynically in their life, or they have a very strong sort of pent up anger to everyone else in their life but me. And there can be these kind of like perpetuating, again, stories that we start telling ourselves, like, they're never going to be that way to me because they haven't been that way to me. But that gives us kind of like a very harsh situation when it's like, you know, a year from now or a few months from now or a week from now, whatever, where finally that layer gets crossed and it's like, yes, I now realize that that person who was cynical to every single person in their lives, eventually they started being that way to me. Okay, I realized that, you know, even though this person is so nice to me when they're sober, yes, they went into an alcoholic rage, and like now I feel very fearful about my life and my choices because I had these like thoughts that I was the exception to something. And it's like, then it becomes a story about one's own feeling of like uniqueness or special nature, or like feeling like we are carrying a light that's like healing other people, like the need to heal someone, the need to be the exception, the need to be like the light in the dark. But like, actually, I feel like you guys need to go more into the light. Okay, so like you need to be with other light people. And I do feel like the allure of complexity, or the narratives that are perpetuating, again, like you being with all these dark people, or you being kind of an upkeeper of complexity or exceptions, should be like yesterday's narrative or last year's narrative, okay? And I think I was saying this maybe for Leo or Cancer, I don't remember, it was one of the previous signs in this reading, but like, okay, so we identify a problem, or we identify something we need to do. We don't spend a lot of time thinking about the romance of that or thinking about the difficulty of that. We just get it done. So like for some people, this is going to be breakups. For some people, this is going to be getting out of an area. Okay, like we don't overthink it. We just move through because we know that that is our greater path with light. So don't overcomplicate it, Virgos. Keep things light. Keep things special for you, and don't let other people monopolize that. Okay, moving on. Libra in 2025. Okay, Libra, 2025 year ahead forecast. Okay, so there's a feeling of being out of the woods. Okay, there's been a very dense process of building up. You've had the South Node in your sign for about a year and a half now, and that's going to be ending right as we go into the calendar new year of 2025. Which means that you guys are coming into this 2025 year cycle with a lot of lessons. Okay, I feel that 2024 was a major learning year for you all, and it feels kind of like facing the next cycle with less fogginess, less confusion, and a lot more clarity. So you kind of know a lot more about what a certain path is heading towards. I feel that you have a really good ability to kind of speak from the heart in a new way and to connect your paths to your heart. I'm feeling like you guys have got to take off pretense as well in 2025 and really lean even further into authenticity. It could be a difficult year having just had the South Node go through your sign and having had the nodal axis on your sign. It could be a difficult year to glaze over your expression, or to rely on packaging, or to rely on some type of persona or some type of ego to get you through. I feel that things have to be very real now, and you need to almost relax into your endeavors more. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be easy, like whatever you're striving for, but I feel like your process of striving is having a change in 2025, like the way that you move towards certain results, the way that you have repetition and consistency in your life. It feels like just having had the nodal axis in your sign is changing your career path, or is changing whichever cycles of striving that are currently in your life. It also feels like you have reinvented certain balances. Okay, so you're not maybe overworking or underworking now. I think that you're entering the year of 2025 with a really balanced regimen and a really balanced processing ability, as well as you guys have some good coping mechanisms now, or maybe a lot of therapy or a lot of work on yourself has led you to be able to function even in very stressful environments. And I feel like you have superpowers in a way coming into 2025 in this sense. Like you may really be able to get through anything, or you may be able to kind of grit your teeth and go through anything. Now, this could be kind of like a blessing or a curse depending on the situation, because I do feel like when you have this type of capacity to get through difficulty or to cope with hard situations, sometimes it can lead you to accepting certain things too much or too easily. Okay, so you might want to also look into what you're accepting coming into 2025, as I do feel like your grid or matrix of essentially what you're saying yes to is going to dissolve out. And by even like February or March, like early in the 2025 year cycle, I see you guys just not accepting some of it anymore, or not being willing to put yourself in certain painful dynamics just because you have the ability to go through it. Okay, certain things that beat us up or push us through the ringer or gauntlets. Okay, I'm kind of feeling this for Scorpio as well, like this entire part of the zodiac. There's like maybe a knowing that we can get through it, or a very powerful kind of like almost gladiator kind of energy that has come in here. It doesn't mean that you need to go through it though, just because you can get through it. So, you know, the adrenaline junkie or the workaholic or the person who goes through trials and tribulations to come out having learned something has an interesting role to play in this year ahead of 2025. Everything that you've learned from that, all of this toughness, all of this sort of resilience and capacity needs to be more deliberately applied. And I feel that there are going to be a few tests coming in for you guys in 2025 relating to this. Like, are some mundane elements that don't have to be so hard in your life being made harder than they have to be? Are you going through things you don't have to go through? Okay, when in reality you could be applying this to something much higher. Okay, so it's quite a self-actualization year for Libras as well. And I feel like you have to just get so deliberate, like I was saying, about what you're applying this new capacity that you have to. So, in some Libras cases, certain things can't continue like this. Okay, and you do need to take off the pressure in certain areas to have more growth in those areas. You might also see that things that you put too much pressure onto, or essentially that you try too hard to do, right? Just having had the North Node on your axis, sometimes what that can cause is like a new sort of pathways to trying too hard or breathing too much fire into something. That will be something that needs to heal a bit in 2025, especially considering that we have Jupiter moving into Cancer, which is about kind of like a quieting down or a resolving, calming, okay energy kind of coming in, rather than such a flamboyant or overbearing energy. But sometimes once we start putting pressure onto things, or once we start breathing fire into things, it can be kind of hard to adjust for that and to get our mind out of that paradigm. So change in mental paradigm, 2025, regrouping of resolution. You know, sometimes I feel like in these previous times we've been in, we realize that there are problems, or we realize that something's off, or we find it easy maybe to complain or to also misery loves company type of things can come in. Now in 2025, I feel like you guys have got to condense back down to your singular experience and resolve problems if they're there, or come through the other side, or not even feel the need sometimes to talk about problems or to talk about what is off, rather just honing a precise ability to overcome it. So, you know, you see something that's broken, you fix it. You see a bill that is in your inbox, you pay it. You see that there's some kind of maintenance needed somewhere, you set that up, rather than, okay, surrounding ourselves with a group of people who also have stagnation, or who also have too much on their plate and just kind of like floating in that soupy kind of feeling of being overwhelmed. We want to really get out of that in 2025. 2025 is giving a lot of precious energy for no longer being in these stagnated, painful situations. But I also feel that your empathy is going to shoot through the roof too, especially if you have anything in Pisces or Virgo in your chart, as that's where the nodal axis is going now. That's going to lead to more psychic ability. That's going to lead to more intuition. That's going to lead to being able to feel other people's vibes more. And, you know, depending on the types of people that you're around, this could be like good or bad. Like you might be kind of overwhelmed with someone else's energy, or you might feel like, you know what, I've got to keep myself moving rather than kind of holding up with a miserable situation. Okay, because this feeling of miserable situations or feeling of things that have been hard for a long time, or, you know, kind of moving through the jello of pain or the jello of grief or bereavement, that's going to be something that we really have the ability to fast track and to overcome as we come out of the 2025 year cycle. But for some Libras, depending on how entrenched some of this is, or depending on the coping mechanisms that we're employing now, it might be easier or harder to do that. But I do feel it's demanded this year, as I also feel that we kind of have to know our triggers, or we have to know what's hard before we embark it. It's just not a good year to be unconscious. Okay, I talked a lot in content leading up to the 2025 year aheads this year about unconscious approval. Okay, just continuing on and on and on, like not feeling the need, you know, if we've got some kind of problem with our thinking, like not feeling the need to get therapy, not feeling the need to figure out what's wrong. That's all going to be replaced with quite a catalyst, quite a motivating factor to get things better. So by the end of the year, I do feel that Libras have a huge access to a better way. And I feel that a lot of that will come also through healing the nervous system, through having health of the body more. So it is kind of an all-around year. It is kind of a year where you can't get too focused on any one thing because everything has to be upkept. So the main point is like making sure that you're not overly attached to things that distract you a lot, to things that sort of perpetuate negative cycles, really being able to identify what is that, you know, what is a perpetual negative loop in your life, not feeling like you need to stay attached to that, and starting to carve pathways through those types of things, because you guys have quite an astute ability now to carve a path or to know what needs to be done. So like try to employ that in your own life and watch out for accepting things too easily. So moving on, Scorpio in the year of 2025. Okay, hi Scorpios, let's talk about you guys for the 2025 year ahead. It feels really good. Okay, it feels easier. It feels in a way quieter. It feels, especially in the second part of the year, once we get Jupiter in Cancer, you know, Jupiter is exalted in Cancer. That's also going to be a trine from Jupiter to whatever you have in Scorpio. So if you have anything that's like majorly off in your life, or any kind of like unsolvable puzzles, or anything that is just like a train wreck, okay, it's because things are finishing up, Scorpio. It's because there are things you don't need to put yourself through anymore that are going to wrap up, but it may take a little bit of time through 2025 to get there. So what I had written down actually for you guys was listen closely to the undertones and undercurrents. There are shortcuts and easier paths now. So you don't have to go the long way around. There is something of like a riddle, puzzle, or even anomaly that has to be solved pretty immediately as you step into this year cycle, because many Scorpios cannot afford to keep hanging themselves up. So we see quite a debilitated feeling around these very fixed mindsets. Okay, I know exactly how I make money in my life. That's the only thing I'll do. I'm not willing to try new things. Or I know the exact type of person that I'm willing to date. I'm not going to go outside of that. Or I know the exact economic status that I have to have, and I'm not willing to try anything else. This is where things start to get shaken up this year. This is where Scorpio starts to feel decline. Because you guys did not come out of 2024, or at least most Scorpios did not come out of 2024 with what I feel to be the formula that is wanted to go forward for eternity. So to have certain fixated mindsets during this time is sort of to assert that it's already done, or to assert that what you can imagine or what you can visualize based on these current environments you're in is the only equation that matters, which will perpetuate these environments. So there's a paradigm shift in the mind of Scorpios happening in 2025 where you realize, okay, I have these dreams, I have these visions, I have these understandings for how I'm going to move forward in my life. But these dreams are certainly being generated by the current contexts, and they either are here or are not. So I have to sometimes be willing to try different things or be willing to have more adaptability and flexibility in order to actually make some of these dreams possible. And I feel also that Scorpios can unwittingly elongate their path toward their dream or vision if they're not willing to make slight adjustments kind of on the spot sometimes here, right? So we're in a mutable energy coming out of 2024, and a lot of 2025 has it too. So we have Jupiter, obviously, in Gemini, which is quite difficult for Scorpio. It's a totally different mindset, a totally different functional construct within the mind that has to work in order to have any positive results from Jupiter and Gemini, and it's not so harmonious with Scorpio. Also, we have, of course, Saturn and Neptune in Pisces. They will be going into Aries this year, so that's going to be sort of transiting on the trine and quincunx level for you all. So there are these kind of ablations. What's the word? It's like a field. Okay, this is hard. This is like a quantum thing. If you can imagine your current life and perception as a certain like aura or field, when you go from like trines to quincunxes, you start to see that maybe things have changed on the outside or at a cosmic level that require also your field to adapt. And if it doesn't adapt, it can start to get little, almost like, I don't know, contusions or just small things being off, which could also be like anomalies as well. Now that's got quite a lot of jargon, I know. But notice that in your life, when you have things like, I just can't make sense of this. This makes no sense to me. This doesn't feel like where I'm supposed to be. This doesn't feel like the proper continuance of the internal self-actualization vision that I have. These are essentially what I'm talking about here, like little contusions, little anomalies that might be based in previous love and trauma, both. Like, okay, because I loved this person before, I'm now not willing to break my loyalty to them, even though they are like abusing some me or something in my life experience. Or because this person caused me trauma before, I'm like thinking so much about them and these previous experiences, and I'm like also through that like subtracting time out of my life. And you really see it, Scorpio, by the time we're in 2025, if there are like these things that aren't really that relevant to where we are in the present, still taking our time and energy. Okay, so this is an incredible year for Scorpio to have these sort of like logical mental breakthroughs, realizing I'm not going to give my time anymore to something that's taking from me like that. I'm not going to filter all of my energy into these previous traumas. Like, essentially, it's a great year for healing and a great year for transcending, but we have to also be willing to try new things, I feel, and we have to be willing to sometimes make split decision like changes just as things go. So for the people who do need to blueprint every single thing in their lives, or they need to plan out every moment in their lives, it's a harder year, especially on the Jupiter and Gemini part of the year, because it is asking for spontaneity. It is asking for a new way of looking at things. It's asking for quicker quantum leaps, honestly, like not holding ourselves up in heavy, dense situations. You know, I talked about that light like a feather message in the intuitive messages of this video, and I think that it's one of the best things that a Scorpio can think about is like, am I weighing myself down or rooting myself down in something unnecessary? Can I actually take the grip off of this, or am I scared to like really enjoy life? That's something that a lot of Scorpios are going to have to ask themselves here. Am I scared to reach this goal? Am I scared to level up at the next level? Am I scared to cross into the next level of the atmosphere and shed some of this old boosters or shed some of the old skin, right? It's a year of the snake that we have in 2025. So there's got to be a feeling of like this old skin that's weighing me down. It's got to go for especially Scorpios. But also there's a need to like listen more closely, as there are some undercurrents that you guys need to pay attention to. So this could be like an industry level thing. This could be at the level of the family unit. This could be any systems, right? Matrices in your life, any hierarchies. There may be new undercurrents that you can work with to really, really get better results. This could be new technology if you're a business owner. This could be something of a common ground between you and previously difficult relationships. Like essentially you could heal some relationship wounds here. You can do it in any direction that you like through these undercurrents. It's a very psychic time for you guys, right? Having Neptune and Saturn at the anaretic degrees of Pisces this year. Having also Uranus opposing you at the anaretic degree of Taurus. Having Pluto just new in its sign, right? Your ruling planet. Also, your traditional ruler of Mars is very strong this year. So it's a powerful year for Scorpio. If you guys can let go of some of the density and kind of have more of a quantum movement rather than such heavy, restrained movements. And in order to do that, you're going to have to listen to some of the undercurrents and also sometimes be willing to take the path of least resistance rather than the hard path, okay? You know, rather than needing to board the motorcycle and ramp through the ring of fire and like do a backflip, sometimes you guys can just take an elevator, okay? And that's a lot safer. So there are safer paths for you guys here. There are easier paths. You know, you don't have to go up the 70 flights of stairs. There's an elevator. So notice when you have more leverage, please, Scorpios. That's something that you guys have struggled with over the last few years, is reinventing the wheel or making things harder than they have to be. That's been a part of Uranus on your axis, and some of you have got to simplify. Now, okay, there's still quite a bit that we need to talk about. I got kind of hung up on the undertones and undercurrent message and the shortcuts. Okay. There's also a feeling for Scorpio in 2025 of a lot happening over there. Okay, I want to really talk about this, as it's one of the psychic images I got for you all. There's a feeling of separation. In some cases, it can even be like feeling ostracized, or it can be feeling like excluded. But in a way, this really benefits you, because like you might be in a minority state, or you might be separated from a certain group, or separated from a certain very negative experience. And what you can see is that there are essentially these like chaotic things happening at a distance. And in your year ahead last year, I was talking about, you know, witnessing like a war conflict or witnessing something from afar and it giving you a certain education about strategy. Well, this is like part 2 of that, not just an education about strategy, but sort of like it teaches you about the way that people dynamics work and the way that, you know, group dynamics and just certain human dynamics work, and you're seeing it from afar, but you're not really involved. Now, part 2 of this, which is starting in 2025, is kind of like using this to your advantage in a positive, healthy way. While all of that crazy stuff is happening over there, I'm going to advance over here. Okay, I know this is like groundbreaking. And this is very much also tied to these like shortcut, easier path narratives. Like because there's essentially some type of major distraction over here, you can like really advance with a multiplier over there. But some Scorpios might be tempted to like try to insert themselves in the chaos, and that's what we don't want to do. Use these situations in a very beneficial way to advance your own healthy visions. Right now, there is that condition of making sure that you're advancing in a way that's, you know, integrity-based, ethical, and correct. But like, I just feel like Scorpios can really get ahead quickly during this time by being lighter, okay? Light like a feather, right? Not held down by 1,000 different relationships they have to deal with every day. Not held down by some type of unnecessarily difficult job or business or something, like moving with less density. It's so beautiful to see Scorpios actually doing that at the final part of this Uranus and Taurus transit. Now, there's also a feeling of like lever pulling, leverage connected to this as well. And you can also have certain people in your lives who are like in chaos, I feel. And one of the main challenges of this year is that, like, will that be contagious? Like, just because someone else in your life has chaos, will you also experience chaos, even if it's not really like your problem? Or can you have that good, intelligent boundary, even at just like an emotional or sort of like ethereal level, where you acknowledge someone else's difficulty, maybe you're there for them even, but you're not going to let it pull you down or mess up your path of self-actualization. Also for Scorpios, there's a major question: what are we prolonging certain things for? Things that are past their time will be very obvious in 2025, and some things may need to be pared down or essentially put into the treasury or the trophy case for some people, and new paths may have to come up, or they have to be understood like what their next medium or longer term sequences. Okay, sequencing, lever pulling, very, very kind of savvy energy for you guys this year. It's going to be good for you. It's going to be good for you, but you got to let yourself like realize that you have this capacity, because sometimes the levers are there and we just instead are pushing the boulder up the hill alone, even though the levers are there. Also, sources of potency will become clearer to you in 2025, like what is potent about what you contribute, what resources you have. There's a need to be even more resourceful now, and to make sure that you're not doing things unnecessarily or participating in zero-sum games. Okay, really count it up. Okay, great time to count up what your business has done now, especially if you've been in an industry for like 7+ years, and understand, okay, what does another 7 years do? Is that okay for me? Also counting up, you know, how many friends that you're supporting, how many clients you're supporting, how many bills you're paying. Okay, and understanding the grander level. We do not want to be in the weeds in 2025 and not seeing the overtone. Okay, so that's what's hard for Scorpio about in 2025, though. You have to know both the undertone and the overtone. And I feel that you guys do have to go through these sequences where, like, one day, okay, I'm thinking about the very micro, like, small details, and then the next day I'm, like, totally in nation mode, or I'm totally in like seeing the entire like 17 forests for all of the 28 million trees or something. And that's hard to go back and forth, but it is part of why you also have this leverage, is the ability to do that. So like rote ability, rote talent, okay, rote resources are a major margin for you guys this year. So it's great also to increase your education here, or to begin planning that. That could also be a great new beginning for you guys. Like, say that you have a talent or a skill, signing up for a program that helps you hone that. If you're a singer and you have a singing talent, signing up for voice lessons. If you are interested in like history or philosophy, maybe starting like a degree program or something. And there's a feeling of great pride, I feel, for Scorpios when it comes to allowing themselves to become smarter and more educated and investing in themselves that way. That's a great area of growth. Also, even just like online courses for some people. Now, watch out. Some of those can be scammy, I think, but like, even if you can't, you know, go to some Ivy League graduate program or something, like, don't make it too ego-based for yourself, although that will be good for some Scorpios too. Whatever you can do to increase your education, whether it's through YouTube videos, whether it's through courses, whether it's through college programs, whether it's through trade schools, or networking with people in that industry, it's going to be really supported and it will meet you halfway. Now, moving on a little bit more for Scorpio before we get into Sag. Okay, because of this, there's also a feeling of new territories that offer more opportunity. Know if you're in an area that can't really support the next branch you need to grow. Feel it out, okay? Know also where you're planting a seed that can't grow in this environment. Some Scorpios, like if you're feeling like droopy all the time, or if you're feeling kind of like out of energy or autoimmune or something, you might not be in the right environment, in the right area karma, or there could be something about the soil or the water or something that is not charging you right, Uranus and Taurus, okay? So there might also be a need to travel or to see how you do in other locations as well. Weight of things has to be gotten right. How heavy this job is, how heavy this repetitive cycle is, how much I'm pushing myself to do something, lightening the load, light like the feather, resting the overdone, healing stress injuries, understanding the margin of force and claiming that. Meaning that you have to understand, like, it takes this for me to run this business, or it takes this for me to make this business do, you know, well or not. It takes too much, and remeasuring sometimes and redoing the sequencing. Sequencing is a great keyword for you all here. Am I sequencing this right? Am I allowing myself to grow? And finally, Scorpios, more present, okay? Things are readjusting here, okay? It's going to take a lot of presence. It's going to take a lot of awareness of what these environments are like. Some days you're going to have to, as I said, think about things at a very detailed level. Some days you're going to have to think about the future and the macro, and some days you're going to have to be very present. There's an alternating, right, mutable energy. Now, when we get Jupiter in Cancer and we go through like July through January, okay, things are going to calm down, and you're going to get the opportunity, I think, to really, for some Scorpios, go a little bit dormant. It depends on the Scorpio. And I would not see that as a failure. I would see that as a chance to bloom more in the future. Okay, and that's not going to be all Scorpios. Some Scorpios will keep on keeping on, as we do have the 2025 year cycle being a conclusionary year cycle, meaning that if rest or respite or sabbatical is not something that has been common in your previous few chapters, it may not be able to manifest here either, but for some it will. But yeah, for the next few years, especially whenever Jupiter might trine your sun, there may be a time where you need to really rest for anywhere from like 2 weeks to like 8 or 9 months for some Scorpios. It just depends. But enjoy the thought maybe of resting things also in poetic ways. It doesn't mean laying in bed sometimes, okay? It doesn't, for some Scorpios it does, but for some Scorpios it's like, okay, I kept trying to tell people my truth, or I kept trying to be another person's cheerleader, or I kept just giving and giving and giving, and now, you know, it's been given, and I'm going to give to myself now. That can be obviously applied in 1,000 different ways. Don't be afraid to change the momentum of things like that, Scorpios. It's a great possibility for healing if you can do that. Anyway, moving on. Thank you, Scorpios. Let's move on to Sagittarius. Okay, Sagittarius in the year of 2025. Okay, what I have written down for you is move, move, move. Okay, don't get too still. It's very different than Scorpio's message, okay? Whereas for Scorpio, we saw a bit of a dormancy maybe starting to come in by the end of the year, or we saw the need to really just feel and be present and overcome. Although maybe it would be good for some of them to move too. For you, you gotta move. Okay, you gotta keep things flowing. You gotta keep the blood pumping. You gotta keep the lymph moving. Especially if you've felt like stagnation over the previous few years. Again, we have Jupiter on your axis this year. That's really awesome. Although it's debilitated, maybe frustrating or annoying in some ways for you, it is really good for moving and having greater mobility. It's really good for quick correspondence, just putting in that notice, sometimes quitting that job, sometimes not telling you guys to quit your job, but it just is what came through. Having more ethereal movement as well, changing our minds about certain things, not feeling too responsible for the way that other people feel, not needing to persuade or sell people on why we do what we do. Okay, just sort of being, flowing. A lot of flow-oriented energy in Neptune, Saturn, and Pisces. It's a square to you. Of course, we also have the Jupiter-Saturn squares and mutable T-squares and crosses at certain times of this year. I feel that some of you have been carrying like the weight of the world. I feel that some of you, do your shoulders hurt? Okay, have you been carrying a boulder up the hill alone? Pay attention to this shoulder pain, okay? Or even like mental strain or exhaustion because we just have to think about so much all the time. We have too much on our plate. We're too much of an empire. That may have to change up here. We don't want things to get sluggish. We don't want to go through the things same things over and over again. We, in some cases, need to like mount our horse or get our car keys out or get our plane ticket booked or something and just cross into that darn next territory. Sometimes Sagittarius, some Sages, depending on the rest of their chart, are going to do this and some aren't. Some are, all Sages are going to know there's something of this that could be required now or in the near future, but some Sagittarians are just going to be so, I hate to say this, bridled up like a horse, okay, and not independent or as free as they think. Now, this is a complicated anomaly, I think, for some Sagittarians, as I feel you guys, like, I don't know, in real life, legally, socially, to be very liberated and free, but there are certain constraints that you might be perpetuating yourself, like because of my loyalty to my family or because of what other people expect of me. I have to stay in this house the whole time, or I have to Ooh, careful Sagittarians, imprison myself in a very romantic way. So it's all happening at a self level. It's all happening at a self level. I'm not sensing that you guys are in any way having imprisonment or anything, but there could be something kind of operating like, I stay in this room that I rent all day watching YouTube videos, almost like a prisoner. We don't want that, Sagittarius. We want greater movement. Let's not do that, okay? Let's actually experience the greater world that is open to us. And this means that you guys have to analyze your resources, and you have to analyze your elements of codependence and obligation in your lives. Like, what are you obligated toward? There could be something even from the Saturn and Sagittarius era, meaning 2017, that you might still be too obligated to. You may have to find creative solutions to that, as I'm feeling like now is not, it's really not the time to quit a job. It's really not the time. For some it is, for some it's not. It depends on the person, but it's not like a blanket statement. It is definitely a time for some type of creative resolution. It is time for things to be updated. It's time to have more assistance, perhaps, more integration. At the same time, you guys don't need to overthink. Also, heavy people and dense attitudes is something that's coming up for you all in 2025. Are people around you making things too heavy on you? Is there too much density in certain areas? Turn around and go the other way. Don't sentence yourself to being in it in some cases, as it is not a harmonious frequency to you. You can't stay there for too long anyway, okay? It's almost like you have to choose density, or you have to choose heaviness in order to perpetuate certain cycles, and at the same time you don't have to. So, like, look at your voting power. Okay, Sagittarius, your voting power. Are you being compelled to vote a certain way when you don't have to be compelled to do so? Sit with that for a second, Sagittarians, please. It's almost like if you could imagine yourself having some type of political power, and for some reason you're voting in a way that is like not actually representative of your beliefs or why you're there, but it's almost just like it's expected of you, but it's not right or it's not real. So this is like something that's trying to alleviate in 2025, where we want more honesty and we want more straightforwardness, and we don't want to have these complex. This is why the Jupiter-Saturn squares, okay? Because there's a lot of this going on where it's like, actually on the inside I hold this belief, and that's the right belief for what I am, put here to do. But because everyone else actually holds this very dense, painful belief, I'm just gonna vote that way, okay? So groupthink, right? And dissolution of individuation because of density and because of people wanting heavy, painful, perpetual loops, whether they know it or not. Sagittarius, I'm breaking the binding ties for you all right now. Okay, these binding ties are broken. You don't need to be bound to these densities. You don't need to be bound to putting your life force on the line in a way that's so constrained. Okay? This is your time. This is your time in a different kind of way now. This is your time to actually show who you are and to not feel like it has to be hidden inside while you masquerade as something else and vote with the block. Okay? And it's going to be really beautiful to see some of you actually emerge in your honest integrity. Okay, I'm going to leave you guys there for your year ahead. Okay, moving on, Capricorn. Capricorn in the year of 2025. Okay, it's a new version of Capricorn. Pluto's out of your sign. Let's do a little celebration dance, Capricorn. Let's be excited. We had plenty of time, 15 years with that Plutonian injection of energy, and you guys don't have to push so hard or apply so much pressure anymore. Those tedious hours perhaps worked at a job you didn't like, or those tedious contracts, those tedious obligations, they are lifting up in the 2025 year cycle. And it's kind of similar to Sagittarius. I feel that you guys need to move more. I feel that you need to work out anything that has been sluggish or anything that has not been flowing right. So this could be a great detox year. This could be a great year to reinvigorate your body or to reinvigorate your health. A lot is out of your way now. Okay, so when you have Pluto in your sign, it creates a lot of obstacles that you have to like find a way to generate the resources or power to either overcome or to go around or to go through. And I think that that's lifted. I feel like the gate is open. I feel like you guys have a lot of open doors. And I feel like it's important to realize that this is the case now and to maybe analyze a little bit and see like, okay, I've got that door open there. This gate has opened up. This that used to be blocked off to me is now open. And then also I'm opened up more, perhaps, to new people coming into my life or to experiencing things I haven't experienced before. Things becoming more experiential rather than material. Okay. Human relationships starting to play a greater role, right, with Pluto in Aquarius. Enjoying more of a human connection, enjoying more of humanity in general, humanitarian causes, okay, and maybe having more open door policies for some of you, not right for some of you, but something that you might need, like some Capricorns that have been too blocked off or separated may need to like now have more human connection, more social life perhaps. But there's also, I feel, more mystical experiences coming in for you all as well. This sextile from Saturn and Neptune in Pisces. Also having Jupiter preparing to enter your axis in the later part of this year. That's where things are really going to start getting good for you guys. You guys might have a few kind of annoyances or weird little knots to work out for the first few months of the year. But by June and July and continuing for like all of the 2026 and part of the 2027 year cycle, I think there's going to be a lot of respite and a lot of ability to recharge, similar energy to Scorpio, where there might even be like a sabbatical or a dormancy or something that's like, I don't have to do that anymore. Some of you might be achieving retirement. Some of you might be achieving some level of retirement or dormancy, even if it's not in a very obvious sense. Like maybe now there's a retired emotional coping mechanism because you don't have that trauma in your life anymore, okay? Some of you can retire certain heavy spending habits. Some of you can retire certain relationships as well that were keeping you up at night, or certain dynamics that are keeping you up at night. A lot of it's past, or a lot of it's done. So some of you are like getting out of the storm per se, or many of you are finally coming into like easier, more tranquil waters. So I do feel for some Capricorns like therapy could be good here, or something that really helps your nervous system and energetic body to recognize that it's no longer in certain stress situations, like anything of like stress disorders or fight or flight responses, especially if you're in still or tranquil waters. Notice that and notice what could perhaps be done to alleviate that. I do have alleviation written down as another keyword for you all. So again, like retirement, alleviation. And for some Capricorns, it can get a little bit shadowy. It's like, I wanted to maintain that position for longer, or I wanted to, you know, take things to the next level, not necessarily retire or alleviate. And I feel like there are ways to honor both sides of it. Like you can alleviate a certain output that you were doing that has gotten tedious, while also still maintaining some relevance within the space, or maintaining something crucial about your self-actualization grid, as some Capricorns also who might be lagging a little bit could still be having to put the finishing touches on some type of major life project or career, right? Even, you know, Pluto is still on the cusp of Capricorn and Aquarius, but yes, it's not in Capricorn anymore and will not be back in Capricorn. So there's kind of like that feeling for you all as well, like we won't be back to some of these previous places. Try to see how that could be relieving. Also, you might be able to use that very deliberately, like there are these relationships I don't want to be involved anymore, or there are these bills I don't want to pay anymore, or there are these areas that I don't want to go in a compulsory sense anymore. Try to see what you need to correct in those areas, and you will have a lot of luck retiring it, essentially, or alleviating it. In some cases, also, other people have to be brought in, so you might have to delegate more things here. You can't do everything yourself. You can't be too much of an island. But also, these other people may have terms of their own, or they may have preferences that have to be, like, integrated. So there could also be a negotiating feeling or an integrating feeling. And also a feeling maybe of helping those coming after you. So the people who are maybe descendants, or the people who are inheriting something that you've done, or are like doing the job that you used to do now, or even just like the way that the industry is changing now as you've been in it for a long time and perhaps steered some of it. There's a need of helping, or there's a feeling of helping people who are coming from this. Okay, so this could also be like charitable endeavors, or this could be helping people who are in a similar place that you used to be. This is an interesting place for like mentorship, okay? Like you could become the mentor of someone, also like professors or tenures or charitable positions, okay? There's a feeling of stepping into a prestigious position for some of you, which probably may have already happened during Pluto and Capricorn, but now it's different. Now it's not just getting a prestigious position, it's like it being made permanent, or receiving some kind of level of even helping people who now get that prestigious position. Okay, so being even at that next level, but that could come with a lot of expectations too. And a lot of you have to be very intricate and considerate about how you're steering this, because there are a lot of offshooting effects on the momentum, essentially. And also I feel that you guys are going to need to be getting your sea legs and adapting to the new version of yourself. So it's like you're meeting yourself again, or you're maybe moving or having some type of different environment that you're going to need to be exploring as Pluto's sign has changed. So yes, anyway, moving on to Aquarius in the year of 2025. Okay, Aquarius, for the 2025 year ahead, Pluto is in your sign for the first year. We've talked quite a bit about that on this channel. I do have a Pluto and Aquarius video for those of you who might not have seen it, which I'll link below in the description box. It's kind of like getting to know it, okay? Getting to know this different situation that you're in, getting to know what a more empowered Aquarius feels like, you know, the ethics, the integrity of it, the higher vision behind whatever resources or whatever paths you've elected to go down. There's a new one, okay? So it's like a new path that has formed up, which you may be embarking in the 2025 year ahead. Don't make it a power trip, okay? Don't make it about the ego. Don't make it about, yes, these things that we've already learned about in Capricorn Pluto can be the pitfalls. So like too much money orientation, too much hierarchy orientation, too much reliance on certain material backing or certain material grids. We don't want to rely too much, yet at the same time we don't want to totally cancel it out. It means a lot to me that we're starting this year with quite an air trine. Okay, we've got Jupiter in Gemini, Pluto in Aquarius, and the South Node in Libra, which is going to be very empowering for all air signs, but especially Aquarius, because there's so much power now in being mobile, in being able to kind of like light like a feather move through some of these tough situations. You guys have a lot of power through your detachment, through your lightness, through your mobility. So try to not succumb to some of these things right off the bat that Pluto can bring. Like, you know, if you just stay in this one place, in this one job forever, you'll get strong. If you just sort of commandeer your resources and get very physically dependent on certain incomes or physically dependent on certain resource grids, you will get more powerful. Okay, Aquarius is one of the signs that, with Pluto in their sign, kind of changes and makes different the energy. So traditional power, traditional hierarchy may not be where the power comes from for you all. I feel like presence, okay, being present in the moment, keeping things mobile, keeping moving is going to be a wonderful healing experience for you all. Some of you may go on new adventures here. I see some of you may be like flying or sailing or experiencing new frontiers with this early degree Pluto in Aquarius. There's still quite a nice ability to go from place to place or to understand the world more. The more that you understand the world, the more that you understand these different frontiers, it feels like you're able to really alchemize your own place within it. But we want to be careful about getting too restrained or too confined to certain isolated places where the abstract mind or the visual mind overtakes the process of learning. So I feel that there's like a new education maybe coming up for you all, as I felt that for Scorpio, which is Pluto's sign that it rules. I felt that there was a lot of empowerment coming and a lot of growth coming through learning new things, through adapting certain skills to hone them more, to get more precise with your skills and talents. So that could be something that Aquarius is learning through here too, like really growing your merit, really growing your repertoire, really growing your list of skills, almost having like an empire of different skills or an empire of different abilities. Maybe it's like learning new languages. Maybe there's some kind of power coming through communication ability, or how you fit into multiple different groups. Okay, so like different social networks, right? This is Pluto in the energy of the 11th house. So it's almost like being able to adapt to multiple different groups of people, having a lot of relevance in different areas, in different cultures, in different, not really even cultures, just group identities or group ego. Okay, being something that you're healing during this time, or that you're called to process for a lot of people. So you might have a lot of power in identifying what a group is. There's a sort of like labeling capacity or a categorization that you guys have a lot of power with in 2025, like categorizing what groups are healthy in your life or not. Also, categorizing certain boxes as well. I'm seeing you guys shifting things up, like you're putting things into different containers, or you're recategorizing them, or you're putting new language onto things and putting them into a group or into a hierarchy. And this is like the beginning. This is almost like the genesis of the way that your life experience will grow over the next like 20 years. Okay, it's like how you kind of categorize or put language to things during this year. So that could be a lot of pressure, and yes, there does tend to be kind of an influx of pressure when Pluto first enters your sign, but it's kind of different for Aquarius at the same time, because there's like a detachment, right? So like it's pressurized, but you're detached from the outcome of that pressure. So it's almost like you guys have just a different way that you're teaching people how to process complex emotions. You're teaching people how to also insert themselves or assert themselves into certain groups, or to remove themselves as well from certain groups. There's a transferring process happening. There's a movement of the currency almost of human social exchange. That is a major focus for you in 2025. So that could look like social media. That could look like humanitarian causes. Okay, there's some kind of connection to these different kinds of currency. Okay, so a less monetary experience, a less materialistic or hedonistic experience exchanged for more of a humanitarian or socially adapted quantum reality. So yeah, it's a major transformation to the social part of the brain, or a major transformation to your social life in a very simple way. And I am seeing you guys may be called or inspired to socialize more, or to form new group dynamics. So it's going to, I think, help your charisma in a way, but it's also going to help you to understand and grow your knowledge about the world, which seems to be what this year ahead is mainly revolving around. Now, take notice, though, that this is not about all that complex trauma from the past. This is not about all of those ego battles in the past. This is not about the time in isolation. This is not about the time alone. This is about beginning to integrate with other people in a new way, and beginning also to grow through that currency, not through maybe a more traditional monetary system. So it's a different kind of economy for you guys. It's a different kind of construct of value as well, that I feel that you're innovating through these experiences. So thank you, Aquarius. Let's move on to Pisces. Okay, hi Pisces, welcome to your 2025 year ahead forecast. Last but not least, let's go out with a home run for this 2025 year ahead forecast, Pisces. Okay, Pisces, so yes, 2025, okay, so Saturn's been in your sign now for quite a while, since 2023. I do have a full video about Saturn in Pisces, which I'm going to link below for you all. If you want to get caught up on that, you know, Neptune is also finishing in your sign this year in March. It's going to go into Aries, but it will retrograde back, I believe, in November, so Neptune is still there. Saturn is also retrograding on the cusp of Aries and Pisces. We have also Jupiter squaring you from Gemini until it goes into Cancer, where it will trine you. There's a build up to a lot of relief, okay? I think coming later in the year, this may not feel like this in the beginning or even the middle of 2025. Yeah, let's take this chronologically. So the beginning of 2025, there is a tedious feeling. There's a feeling of too much repetition. You might need to take a break from things. You might need to do that in a very responsible way, though, so it might not be easy to flow through things like you're craving. You might have to carve out time off for yourself. You might have to carve out certain spectrums of rest and relief, and that's going to have to also be balanced with perhaps thinking about how new structures will come into your life. So it's like time in rest or time in respite may be difficult in the beginning of this year because Saturn is so strong in Pisces. It was right at the middle of the sign as we enter into 2025, which is the most concentrated time of the transit. So it's the strongest Saturn in Pisces energy that we're entering 2025 with. And it's very adamant about placing boundaries that were lacking for a long time. It's also very adamant about consistency. And at the same time, it wants to bestow upon you the ability to kind of dance through, I almost want to say, certain headaches or certain things that have been hard. Like there's a lighter touch needed in some places, but also very firm boundaries needed in others. So there's a lot of reflection, I feel, especially as you're coming out of 2024, that you may need to take. In fact, I do feel it would already be feeling kind of dense or grinding to like not have time for reflection, or to keep doing things almost that you don't have to do, instead of taking time to like think about, you know, how far have I come? Where have I lacked boundaries where they were needed? Where have I put boundaries where they were unnecessary? Where have I spent unnecessarily? Where have I not spent where it was like super important? This is always the feeling with Saturn in Pisces, is like the boundaries or the spending or the structure may be misplaced a little bit, and there's just a need to reorient it a little bit. There's a need to give yourself a break in some places where things are overdone and start trying more where there's like a vacuum or a void. Also, as we're getting into like the astrological new year, so by the time we hit your season, okay, like March, late February, before we get this strong Neptune in Aries and before the summer when we get Saturn in Aries, I feel like there's a lot of light you already have to start bringing into a lot of situations. So we can't afford to compound darkness anymore. We can't afford to compound negative feelings or to meet rudeness with rudeness, or, you know, fighting fire with fire, basically, to a lot of negativity. We have to kind of transcend in a way that we haven't before, especially as Saturn starts to move direct quite quickly towards Aries and starts to move towards these later degrees of Pisces. There's a major challenge in just like kind of being sort of like a butterfly. Okay, so coming out of the cocoon, having this beautiful light mobility, while at the same time a safety and a protection because of boundaries that are further outside. So you guys have to create your own peace. Okay, it's going to be very hard for a Pisces person to rely on another person to reinforce their peace, or to rely on someone else to naturally bring you peace. It's like you're going to have to do it yourself, or you're going to have to start creating structures in your life, or I don't know, like forming a new household, forming a new business, forming things that really work across all of the sectors. So it's kind of like walking a line. Or if you're having to make large level decisions, say you're like the leader of your family, or say that you have some type of leadership role in a business or something, like if you're the one making decisions, it's going to have to be so, you know, it's kind of hard this year with the Jupiter-Saturn squares and the Saturn in your sign, but like it's probably where a lot of Pisces are. You can't just favor one side. You can't just favor yourself. You can't just, you have to master the art almost of working towards the benefit of every single person in the group, being able to solve problems through spending, yet also conserving finances, okay, perfectly balanced spending, perfectly balanced decisions that don't, accidentally persecute someone, yet also don't over favor or over benefit another person. It's kind of hard to articulate, but there's a lot of growth and extreme sage-like wisdom that you can generate through going through this and through learning also, okay, in the past, yes, that decision, I didn't even mean to benefit someone too much, but it did, and it caused them to get an ego trip, or it caused them to get too much power in the group, which hurt the entire group. And I didn't even mean to do that, but now I've learned, okay, or, I didn't mean to withhold from that person, or I didn't mean to, make that person feel excluded. That was not my intention, but, the action caused it. And now I understand that sometimes even actions that aren't meant to be exclusionary can sometimes generate that, and I have to become a much higher level sort of math equation solver in order to hold this role, or in order to hold this space well. And then there are going to be some Pisces people who are like, I'm stepping down, I'm not doing this anymore, this is impossible to make some of these higher level decisions without someone's feelings being hurt, or without someone else being overly getting too much grandeur or illusions of grandeur. Watch out for illusions of grandeur here, okay, either from other people in the group, or even from yourself, as there is a feeling with this Saturn and Neptune in Pisces. It's very grandiose in some cases, it just is. But we can't let it go to our heads, and we can't get an ego trip going, because you guys need to actually create from a new place. So you need to actually channel some of that grandiosity into the actual craft, or into the actual creative process. So your feeling of accomplishment, or your feeling of success, which many Pisces will also have here, needs to almost be reinvested into your new album, or it needs to be reinvested into expansion, not just into getting high on the supply, basically, of the experience. So yes, I do feel new parameters also this year, new daily routines, new implements for working. Getting up at the same time every day could be really good, because I'm feeling like some things get too almost effervescent, or they get too impossible to almost not concentrate all your energy onto if there's not a lot of firm conditions or parameters put onto your time management. Also, Saturn is the planet of time, but with Neptune there, it can kind of make it foggy. So you have to perhaps here have some kind of mechanism or some kind of technology that helps to see things from different perspectives, or transcends this feeling of okay, I can only see 5 feet in front of me because of how foggy this situation is. Some of you may also have to confront dark issues to overcome this fog. So it could be confronting homelessness, it could be confronting some kind of corruption or envy or jealousy, power trips. These things I feel can't flourish past this year, so I feel there's something done by Pisces, or there's something that you're implementing or creating that overcomes this. You can reunify your family here. You can also resolve some of these issues that imbalance has caused. The nodal axis is also coming on to you guys this year, so this is going to be the North Node in your sign in 2025, which means that Pisces is going to create new goals this year. Pisces is going to step off of the previous track, or understand how they can orient their life force up to a much higher level. So you guys just have to really navigate things in a way that, again, does not concentrate power in one place, and kind of works for the entire group, so that you can orient and have the time carved out to really create these higher level self-actualization paths. And ultimately, Pisces, for 2025, by the time we're getting halfway through the year, these water trines are going to be really nice. So there's going to be Jupiter in Cancer, there's going to be Scorpio season, there's going to be the North Node in Pisces, and it's going to bring relief. It's going to give you more peace, but there could be a gritty kind of almost survivalist feeling of getting to that point throughout the earlier part of the year. So it's almost like January through September is kind of a gritty narrative, and it's hard. Some of these decisions are hard to make. Some people are not possible to be pleased. But all of those experiences are going to kind of bring realizations to you where it's like, okay, if this person can't be pleased, well, that means I really don't have to even try to do it, okay? And then that's going to bring more of your own energy back to yourself. Also, through the gritty nature of getting down this specific path, like the majority of 2025, again, January through about September, that may bring you a lot of confidence about your capacity as you realize, like, I'm actually able to navigate difficult terrain. And then, yeah, by like October or November 2025, you might have a reward, depending on how this Saturn transit has gone so far. Saturn will start to give rewards, right? Neptune will come back into your sign for a final time and be transiting at that anaretic degree of Pisces. And there are some issues you never have to have again. Some of you might like pay off your house. Some of you might essentially like transcend the working class in some very roundabout ways, even if it's not in like an obvious like materialistic way. You might get like the career of your dreams. You might get a lot of support from people to be almost like, I don't know, some type of higher presence that requires greater support. And it's not something that you yourself just carve out. So I'm seeing support. I'm seeing leverage. I'm seeing much of a lessening debt construct. So maybe some of you are paying off your debt. Maybe some of you also are just looking at it differently or not being as weighed down. Again, like the boulder on the shoulders feeling is going to really alleviate. And this, in some cases, could be into 2026 for some of you. But 2025 is preparing the path for that. It's preparing you to be less indebted. It's preparing you to also know where, you know, I don't even need to waste my time trying to solve someone else's problems who doesn't want their problems to be solved. I don't need to put energy into things and leak out my energy. Leaks, okay, leaks of energy. Keeping you indebted or keeping you kind of out of the true resolution space is something that you will resolve through grit, January through September. And then I do see powerful solutions coming in for you all later this year that will cause like immediate healing. Okay, so that's very positive. But anyway, I think that's about it, Pisces. And yes, to everyone who made it through this video, thank you so much for being here. Hit the subscribe button below if you want to support this channel in a free way. Hit the like button as well to get it out there in the algorithm. Your comments also help me so much. Comment below, let me know how the video resonated for you. What's your sign? Okay, just any type of comments help this video to get out there. Also, if you wanted to check out my Patreon page and get weekly forecasts every Saturday, monthly sign by signs, that is the current offering as of the time of posting this video. Check that out in the description box below and come say hi to me on Patreon. Thank you all so much for this wonderful live premiere season. I've so enjoyed spending time in community with you all. And I cannot wait to be crafting more content for 2025. I will talk to you all soon and have a wonderful, wonderful wrap up to 2024 and good luck for 2025. Much love. Bye.